Well, hello, Earth. It's God's comic Brad Stein, and this is Brad Stein Has Issues with Comedy. Conservatism and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. I couldn't set it any more cacophonic or clarified, if you ask me. Today, we have a very special guest. Not just a special guest, but a guy who has lots of guests lodged in his throat because he's a ventriloquist, a very well-known one who made a lot of money, winning the first Star Search for $100,000 years ago, and now he has been creating quite a reputation over the years. His name is Taylor Mason, and we are going to talk ventriloquism. And is it, in fact, an amazing old lost performance art, or is it cringe? You tell me by the time we finish. And by the way, trust me when I say it is a wonderful, unique art, and there have been those who have made quite a headway doing that. When I think of ventriloquism, I think of you. I know that when you were young, you were desperately interested in ventriloquism, and not just because you wanted to be able to throw your voice, but because you loved the creepy dolls, especially as it got dusk in your room and the creepy dolls sat there on the shelf staring at you, waiting to be brought to life. Wyatt, whatever happened to your dreams of ventriloquism?
They came true, unfortunately.
Well, talk to me. Let's hear it.
Turns out the creepy dolls, not worth it.
How come?
Well, I mean, you'd think you could get past the creepy factor because of all the fortune and fame you get from being a professional ventriloquist. Turns out it only gets you laughed out of public spaces.
What does?
Saying, hey, I'm a ventriloquist.
Now, listen, I would agree with you for the most part. Something about ventriloquism has always been thought of as kind of, I don't know, lower form of art. But look at Jeff Dunham. That guy's a multi-millionaire because he created, what was the name of his guys?
Peanuts.
Peanut. Yes, you even remembered.
I watch all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so Peanut, and then he has that dead terrorist.
The dead terrorist.
Yeah, all those guys. So, anyways, Jeff Dunham has killed it. There was a young lady who won. What's it called? America's Got Talent, and she's got her own show now somewhere. There's a guy in Vegas, I think, Terry Fedor, who's got a multi-million-dollar show. So to say that the ventriloquism is in fact, low budget or whatever, and certainly there's that version, but just like I used to be a professional magician, there was kind of the cornball version of magic, and then there's the sophisticated David Blaine's and people like that do things at the highest level. So clearly there is different forms of ventriloquism, but that's not what I wanted to discuss with you this second. What I really wanted to discuss is, why are dolls so creepy?
I think it's Uncanny Valley is the current theory. My personal theory is they are just naturally evil beings that should be feared, but
so are they possessed? Demonically possessed, are you saying? Do they?
I wouldn't even say demonically possessed, just possessed in general.
So what was the word you used up front? You said uncanny or something?
Uncanny Valley.
So explain that to me.
It's a concept where anything that looks sort of vaguely human but not quite is unsettling for people. It's like something's wrong here.
Right, but do they, psychologically, do they know what it is about that is creepy?
Well, like I said, it's just a few little things that just aren't the way that we instinctually think should be.
Well, one thing I think for sure is, if you think about a dead person, a dead human, sometimes they die and their eyes are open still.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the eyes are dead. They're glazed, right? It's like shark eyes, right?
Yeah.
So they're open, but they're clearly not seeing. They're just like glazed over. Well, dolls' eyes are kind of like that. It's like they're open, but they don't see. So there's something, maybe like you're looking at a cadaver. You're looking at a dead body-ish.
There's a way you can fix that, actually. You can just, because with modern technology, you can make dolls that can blink on their own to make them more human. That'll definitely make the problem better.
So you want the dead inanimate humanoid to blink periodically.
At random, periodically, yes.
Like in the dark when you're looking in
In the dark, in the light. And they should also turn their head to face you.
Okay.
Just to just that you know that they are blinking and they are absolutely normal.
And should we have them say things arbitrarily like,
Hi. No. It's like, hi, I'm Tommy. I'm a real boy like you.
oh.
Because we want to reassure people.
I think if you want to start getting children to hurl themselves out of second floor windows, you figured it out.
Well, duh. That's why you put the dolls on the first floor.
There was a Twilight Zone episode that had a doll that was alive, and the little girl had a stepfather who was mean. It was Telly Savales played it. He was an actor you wouldn't know, but he was in Kojak. He ended up being well known in a 70s detective show called Kojak. He was bald, and he would take a sucker and always have a sucker. That was his hook. He'd have a sucker in his mouth. And he was Kojak. But anyways, that was the actor, Telly Savales, who was also in The Dirty Dozen, if I'm not mistaken, which was Clint Eastwood was in that and some other famous people. This is a 60s film. Anyways, Telly Savales, and he was the guy that the doll realized that he was not nice to the doll's owner, so she would do weird, creepy things like, I don't like you, and my name is Talking Tina, and you're not very nice. It'd start doing weird stuff like that.
Yeah, and then at the end, when there's like a new, I forget who it is, but somebody else like meets the doll for the first time, and the doll goes, "My name is Talking Tina, and you'd better be nice to me."
Yeah.
I remember you showing me that episode. That was creepy and fun.
Well, I just find it fascinating that, first off, I love that you had a term, uncanny, what was it?
The Uncanny Valley is the term.
Okay, so wonderful term. I'm so grateful you knew that term because I've never heard of it, but even the term sounds creepy, frankly.
I mean, yeah, it's like even uncanny is an uncanny word.
Well, and here's the other thing, Wyatt. There's a term, a word term, when a word sounds like the thing it represents.
Onomatopoeia.
Right. And so uncanny sounds like the creepiness that you experience when you watch things that are uncanny. So in some odd, uncanny way, uncanny is an onomatopoeia, but more psychological than audio. Would you agree with that, or did I just make that up to fill time?
I agree with that, but I don't know if I agree with that technically counting as onomatopoeia. Isn't that supposed to be just physical words themselves?
I made a very clear distinction. I said this is more like a psychological onomatopoeia. So I'm kind of creating a new category.
Well,
terror. Terror makes you scared just hearing the word, so it's a psychological onomatopoeia, which on its surface is kind of a funny word, onomatopoeia, because it makes you want to urinate.
Look, let's look at ourselves here. The only reason onomatopoeia is fun to say is because it's a lot of syllables, and it's really fun to bunch them together at the beginning.
It is, and well, you can't help it because that's what happens when you have a bunch of syllables. You gotta mention them all, and that's what makes it all choppy sounding.
Honestly, it's like those fake like peanut brittle cans with the spring things in it. It's like you're compressing so much into so little.
Yes, but when you open it, boom!
Yeah, when you open it, you're startled and surprised.
And yet nobody ever is, because some reason we always know when we're given that can that this is one of those flying snakes. It's like it never fools it. It'll just be this weird, like total fake-looking peanuts on it saying, mixed nuts, and you just know this ain't real. Not to mention when you hold it, it's like feels hollow. So you just know something's up. It's an uncanny feeling, almost like an uncanny valley.
Like the literal best case scenario is you fall for it once.
Yes, that's true. That's exactly right. Well, listen, we need to talk about some other things, Wyatt, because sure, the creepy dolls are good. Was a wonderful launch to this episode because we're having a ventriloquist on, so we need to talk about creepy dolls. I don't remember if I asked him if his dolls ever creep him out, but Wyatt, take notes. Next time I talk to a ventriloquist, I need to ask them if their dolls ever creep them out or why people are creeped out by their dolls when they aren't being animated.
Honestly, you should have told me you were having a ventriloquist so I could be back behind you, out of view, with a puppet in my hand.
Wouldn't that have been amazing?
That would have been perfect.
Or if I would have said, I've been working on my puppetry, and I put it on, and then I just went, let me know how I'm doing, and then have you in the background going, hey, how you doing? And I'd never even, and the dude's like, man, you're really good. You're like, well, I've been working on it, but I'm not a pro, not like you. Anyways, how creepy is my puppet?
It to be a puppet of me.
I made a joke about ventriloquists years ago. I don't know if you ever heard it, but
Heard it. You talked about it on your literal interview with the guy.
Oh, dang it. Well, then maybe I should save that for the people watching this that are still around.
You betcha.
Hey, listen, Wyatt. I was just in Florida. Did I mention that?
Not in the audience, no.
You ever been to Florida?
Yes.
What did you eat?
Crocodile?
I'm going to guess
I ain't going to apologize, Peter. It was yummy.
It was an alligator. But
Scrumptious even.
It was definitely an alligator, not a crocodile. But thank you for pretending like you were in Egypt.
I'm sorry. Did I ever claim to be a zoologist?
No, not one bit.
I am an eater of yummy meats and meat substances.
Yes.
And I honestly think that I succeeded on that day.
So you had an alligator, but didn't you also have some other odd meats? Odd meats?
Odd meats? In Florida?
I thought you had. So alligator, because we watched a TV show where like the guy went to odd places, right? Wasn't it like.
Yeah, that's where we found the crocodile.
Odd food, or was that the name of the show?
No. You're thinking of Bizarre Foods. But what we saw was, I believe, Man versus Food.
Okay.
This is when the guy ended it with a food challenge.
Okay. Well, anyways, and you found it. I wasn't there, I don't think.
Yeah, it was when I was touring with the church band.
That's right.
That David had.
That's right. And you guys went and found that joint, and you had alligator. And let's just be honest, Wyatt, it tasted swampy.
Yeah, but that's like eating seafood and going, man, this is a weird. It's like almost the ocean, like on my plate, like weird.
Yeah.
That's why you're there.
If you ever get seafood, I don't know if you know this, but if you put your ear up close to it, you can almost hear the fish going, help me.
No.
Please throw me back. Why are you doing this?
That only applies to sushi.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, they cook its conscious straight out.
I know it. Oh, cook his consciousness out. That has a certain amount of uncanny valley to me. Psychologically, of course. I'm not talking about
And alliteration.
Oh, nice. Well done,
Yeah,
son.
this Brad Stein Sisters episode is brought to you by your average middle school language class.
Amen. And that's, a lot of middle schoolers watch me religiously because I have such insight, such wisdom, and such an ability to dig out information that an average podcast host would have overlooked. I doubt a lot of podcast hosts who are about to have a ventriloquist on would talk about the creep factor. I did talk about the unsettling of their of the partner that they have to use. I did. I see things others don't see. Consequently, middle schoolers find me profound. And Wyatt, if you can't be profound to a 13-year-old, what is your life's goals ever going to be? What kind of conclusion can you leave to society if young children don't find you deep?
Young children. The people who scream YOLO while doing TikTok challenges.
What is YOLO?
You only live once, which apparently some people have took the meaning you only live once, so die in the most spectacular way you can.
I'll bet you, and I don't know this, but I'm going to take a challenge. I'll bet you $100 that Hindus aren't doing that.
you, my friend, would be $100 richer.
Hey, man, now you know why I said that, right? I got to be honest, I didn't know if you would catch the reference. Why would it be inaccurate for a Hindu to say you only live once?
Because their entire religion is that is in fact not the case.
That they never stop living and reincarnated.
They constantly reincarnate. You know, reincarnation has always been an interesting subject matter because if it's true, how does it work? Is it like a karma thing where whatever you reincarnate as is based on how you lived your life?
That's right.
Or is it literally a crapshoot like, I'm a human, you die, hey, I'm a fruit fly. 3 seconds later, hey, I'm a frog.
Well, that's it. And ironically, the frog eats the fly. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's way
Wait,
karma.
hold on.
Yeah.
If you reincarnate as the frog that ate the fly that was your previous reincarnation, is that technically considered a form of suicide?
I think so, or cannibalism.
Oh, why not both?
Yeah, I think it is.
Is it possible to do both at once?
I think so, certainly as a Hindu. Remember, they don't say YOLO, they say YOLA. You only live a lot.
If you reincarnate as a plant, is it murder to eat you?
Yeah, of course it would
But
be.
you're a plant, and according to vegans, plants, don't have pain receptors, I think, is their
That's
reasonings.
how evil vegans are.
Yeah, because they prove that they actually do sense pain.
Wait, what happened to the old talk nice to this plant, talk mean to this plant, play Beethoven for this guy, play AC/DC for this guy, or, scream metal, and then one plant kind of eats it and the other one flourishes. So there's this other group that takes plants seriously, like they almost are sentient, and then we're supposed to take that serious, but then the other vegans say, but no, we don't hurt animals. Instead, we rip fruit from its roots and eat it raw, so you don't even put it out of its misery. Yeah. And you do it right in front. Let's say it's an apple, it falls down, you eat it. So right in front of all of its apple family, you are consuming the little cub. Is that what they're called? Baby apples that drop a little prematurely. Are they called cubs?
No.
Are they called?
They are called apples, in fact.
Applets, maybe?
Applets? I can see applets. I'll have to talk to the science people about that, but I'm pretty sure apples are called apples when they are apples.
Okay. Well, I just thought, if they are young, not fully mature, you know how you can bring bananas home and it's we got to give it a few days to ripen?
Yeah, but we don't call them greenanas until they ripen, do we?
Well, but should we? Should we give them the respect of they're on a journey to maturity?
I don't know, audience. Should we start calling unripe bananas greenanas? Should we? Or is this man categorically insane?
Listen, we can do whatever we want. Why? We have free agency. God gave us agency. You know what that means, right, son?
Yeah, it means...
you get 10%. Ha ha!
Yeah, beat me... You know what? Nope. There we go. There we go.
Aww.
You beat me to the joke. That's what the wall was for.
Were you going to do it?
I was literally going to do it. I was setting it up.
You got to be quicker. Listen to me. Did you put categories under each button like strips so you know what and you don't have to kind of...
No. I put them all on a Post-it note.
Oh.
And then prompted to lose the Post-it note.
Listen, Wet, I want to ask you about Florida. So I was in Florida, and they allow alligators to run wild, as you know. They're big fans of manatee. As you know, I have a whole routine about the manatee that's in unapologetical. I believe it's in unapologetical routine, which is not my new routine, which is laugh while it's legal, which is completed. We just haven't got it on the marketplace. But we're searching for a little marketplace to put my little new routine while the getting's good. But Florida, I was at Trump Doral, which is a place where they have a golf course, and they've even had tournaments there, Wyatt. Guess what kind of tournaments?
What kind of tournaments?
Golf.
Golf tournaments in Florida?
Well, they did. And
you mean that they do golf in Florida?
oh, do they ever?
But there's gators there.
Yeah, they let the gators run wild. That's the beauty of Florida. To me, that's the risk that made America great. We're going to let you go out and do this and go out and play golf, but just so you know, there may be an alligator on the hole. So it's not like, you got to worry about the dog leg left. You got to worry about having a leg left because the alligator is on the move. But to me, to turn golf into a contact sport, an existential crisis where a bogey isn't just one over, but in fact, perhaps you've lost a limb, to me, that would add such excitement to the golf experience, especially for those who don't like golf, who find it boring, mundane, slow moving. Suddenly, but what about if you were about to be attacked? It'd be like having a golf course in Wyoming with the potential for a grizzly bear to suddenly bound onto the course and decapitate one of the lead golfers. Because to me, it would just add attention. You know, the only sport that has this phenomenon is race car driving, where people literally go to hope that they'll watch an explosion and somebody burned alive. So for that to exist and nobody's stopped to say maybe that ain't cool, or we haven't created a bubble capsule yet for these guys to be ejected. I mean, we can do it in a jet. Why can't we do it in these 250-mile-an-hour cars? But we don't. We want that option of death. And we accept that. It's part and parcel, because if you think about it, why watching a car go like this gets old unless the guy might die.
I mean, how many sports wouldn't be improved by adding the possibility of death?
That's what I'm going for. For example, they have skeet shooting. What if periodically one of the guys just turns to his opponent and shoots him? That could be it. You only get one round to do that. And if you miss, oh well, you tried. It's kind of like when they used to do duels. If you turn and shot. And I don't know if you know this, but during duels, Wyatt, it was more about an honor system. And sometimes the guys would turn, hold the gun straight up, shoot it. They've been satisfied. Their dignity has been returned. They've done their job. But once in a while they would shoot and they would miss, but other times you would get killed to make a point that you insulted me. So there's only one solution, and that is we need to shoot at each other until one of us doesn't survive. A sport, by the way, that I don't think was filmed. I don't think they had a galley that could watch the whole thing where you were put into a stadium. Now that was done, of course, when Christians were thrown to the lions. So there was that sport of, it wasn't really a sport. A sport would have been if the guy had a chance to escape, or they put a tree there you could climb up, or but it was just like feeding. It was like watching them feed off of humans. So not cool, but my people, Christians, have suffered and endured that for millennia. You know that Christians are the most persecuted religious group on earth today. So it is a hard thing being a Christ follower, if you haven't noticed, and it's supposed to be. This is the part that I think people miss about Christianity, at least in the West. Jesus said, count the cost if you're going to jump in. Be careful about just accepting me, because there is a price to pay sometimes for this. There is going to be times when things that you don't want to happen will be required of you. Things that you don't feel comfortable with, safe with, content with, is going to be given to you your way. And you get to say, it's okay, Lord, I've given you my life, which means my comfort, my safety, my peace is not necessarily what I'm after, but your salvation is worthy of whatever comes my way. And this is a very difficult, weird, odd, rare occasion that we're taught in church in the United States, that, there might be some suffering, and you get to revel in that and thank God that he allowed you to share in his suffering. So again, we're looking at a life of sacrifice, and Wyatt, we just don't hear about sacrifice in the church anymore. Now, you happen to play drums at a Methodist church in Gladeville, Tennessee. And if I'm not mistaken, your pastor is Korean, maybe?
Yes.
So South Korea. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So South Korea has got a burgeoning Christian culture, but right above them in North Korea is a horrific, one of the top Christian, anti-Christian, destructive, evil, punished, killed, tortured, imprisoned to Christians. It's an atheist-driven. Whenever atheists are given power, they mutilate, destroy, rape, kill, and do more damage than any ideology has ever done in history. You take every religion that's ever existed, and when it was abused and caused death and destruction, add all those destructions up, it pales in comparison to what atheists have done in 100 years when they were given power. Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Stalin. It goes on and on. When atheists are given power, they destroy, because it's an immoral belief system. Matter of fact, they have to steal from Christians to have a moral system. They say they have one, but they don't. They have to borrow it from Christians because there is no morality in just being an organism that came out of the sludge and just wants to survive. Because if it's all about survival, then I get to do whatever I want. I have no moral compunction to do anything but take your wife and rape her if I want to make more progeny, because that's what it's about, right? Survival. Kill you because you're eating some of the food I should have had, not to mention you're getting in my way. So if you take atheism to its logical conclusion, it destroys everything in its wake, because it's evil to blaspheme and heretically walk away from the God who created you. So there's a lot at stake, and I got to be honest with you, Wyatt. A lot of what I just provided for those watching probably wasn't expected from those who earlier were just thinking we were talking about creepy dolls and golfing with alligators.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of chaotic answers you expect from Brett's tennis issues.
Well,
never expect anything, because you will be disappointed.
You can't expect one thing.
Unexpectedness?
That's it.
That's it.
That's all we got. That's what makes us what we are. Well, why? Here's the thing. What you and I have discovered is that we are trying to build a podcast that not only has us interacting, talking about life, which a lot of successful podcasts do, especially with comics, but also I try to talk about deeper things, religious things, Christian things, ideas, holy things, moral things. I try to have insight and wisdom. And of course, the guest provides a lot of the fabric of uniqueness, because the guest is going to have their own expertise and their own experiences that I don't. And so we try to find those interests there. And today's guest is of that ilk. He is a professional ventriloquist and has been for many, many, many years, about as many years as I have been a comic. He's been very successful at it, and he's made many accomplishments. But what's going to be really fascinating to you watching this Taylor Mason episode is that when you think of a ventriloquist, I also think, if I'm not mistaken, that you're kind of thinking they're more like nerds, right? I think even magicians a lot of times are kind of nerds. And it's like being in band camp or in marching band. You were in marching band, Wyatt.
Yeah.
That was your nerd stage.
Honestly, I would say my nerd stage was more the bowling team, because I at least enjoyed the bowling thing. Band was a mistake from start to finish.
That's true. You're right. The bowling, and there's people that make a living as bowlers, and it's a sport. But there's a nerd cringe factor with bowling that just simply is never going to go away. It just isn't.
It can be reduced by simply adding alligators to the mix.
Oh, what are you thinking? That's what's been missing to the bowling experience. Well, once again, you and I may not be the most popular podcast, but if you listen to us, we are the ones that do the most good to society in creating ideas and concepts that, if taken literally, would change the world. And I think for the better, because to watch a bowler leg be ripped off right when he's trying to complete a turkey, I think to me is an irony and a joy to behold. And it's something that only you and I could have come up with, because that's what Brad Stein Has Issues does. It finds things that no one has ever found before. Wyatt, how would you want to conclude?
How would I want to... I mean... Does Brad Stein Has Issues ever truly conclude?
No, I think it doesn't. I think you're right. It's eternal. It just goes on, and it leaves in its wake a pondering for our people. All those who are watching right now, who are old, wonderful people who've been part of our experience, they're continually helping it grow. And what I've told people is, what it looks like we're going to be doing is cutting this front part down. When it goes onto Spotify or iTunes, which is on the Life Audio network, it's audio only. It's all cut down to about 45 minutes in total with the guest and with our banter. But you can watch this episode as you are and get more banter, and we might even go longer. It's just that we're trying to keep it to where it's watchable in live form, because if it gets 3 hours, it's just going to be hard for you guys to watch. There's a couple of you out there that are so hardcore you do, but I'm not expecting that. But Wyatt will cut it down to where this thing will be about 45 to an hour in length, and then you need the full episode. You have to go to subscribe for it, which is just $3 a month, so it's still the cheap thing. But it allows us to finally grow this thing into something that could even reach a much larger audience. If you haven't subscribed to Brad Stein Has Issues on YouTube, do that immediately. Hit the notification button. Please subscribe. Please download the audio version. Please share this. Please comment how much you love it. Go out there and give it 5-star rating. I know you're lying. I know you're making it up. I know you're feeling sorry for me. Do it anyways. Just put it out there. But let's see what we can do as we continue to try to grow this hopefully informative, interesting, unorthodox, one-of-a-kind podcast known only as Brad Stein Has Issues. So tonight, as you watch and observe, I'll bet you didn't know much about ventriloquism, how they learn it, how they do it. There might even be a little tutorial in this that teaches you how to become a ventriloquist. So once again, I'm giving you way more than you deserve and way more than you've paid for. But that's who I am. I'm Mr. Giver. Mr. Giver. And don't forget, if everything gets boring one day, we'll just add an alligator. Wyatt, I thought you would have some incredible insight and wisdom to retort, but I guess not.
No, I'm sorry. I'm still debating over whether or not it's alligator or crocodile, because I think we've swapped between them like every 5 seconds.
Well, it doesn't matter to me. Here's what does matter. The guest you are about to watch has got stories and parts of his life that you would not have expected from a nerd ventriloquist. Matter of fact, what you're going to find out is he's very much not a nerd at all, but the opposite. There's parts of his life and what he's experienced you're not going to see coming. I didn't know, and I've known of this guy for many, many, many years. So we're going to go deep, and we are going to discover the mystery of the hidden throat, where two people can survive inside of one man's larynx, and how you can make a living doing that. And in the end, inspire people in ways you couldn't have imagined. So please, my friends, enjoy this interview with ventriloquist extraordinaire, Taylor Mason. You know, folks, on Brad Stein Has Issues, it's always important that I'm always mixing things up, always giving you guys something out of left field, a boomerang, a banana peel. I've done it all, and we have had every type of eclectic guest you can come up with, from sword swallowers to sideshow performers to astrophysicists to atheists who happen to have some insight. Folks, that's really what that's really what it's all about. Speaking truth, and all truth is God's truth, no matter who speaks it. But I am a fan of the performing arts, and because of that, I have had a little bit of a Renaissance career. I've done some odd, unique things as a professional in different art forms. But there's been two in the performing arts that I never delved into. One was juggling. Just never was interested in juggling, even though I know jugglers, and it's a very great skill. But it's not something that I have ever participated in. And the other one is who this gentleman is an expert at. And I can't wait to dive into this because I'm very curious about it. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. But he is a ventriloquist. And that, to me, is a fascinating art form because it's old. It has some even elements to it historically that could be thought of as devious and spooky.
Amen.
So we're going to talk about those things as well as his career and his life and who he is and why he's here. But he's someone I've known for many years, and somebody that I don't think we ever worked together, but if not, who knows? We might be able to remedy that today. Nevertheless, please welcome a man who was one of the original winners of Star Search, which is
Ah,
now you guys know it as America's Got Talent. Taylor Mason is with me. Hello, my friend.
Brad, how are you? Nice to see you again. Yeah, talking about ventriloquism is actually, I wrote a book about this a few years ago called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Ventriloquism. You could say it was typecast, that's fine with me,
Yes.
whatever. And I delved into an art form that, as you said, is ancient and
Mm,
goes back to, we're talking thousands of years.
yes.
And since I studied it a little bit, I'm not going to say I'm an authority because, believe it or not, there are authorities in this world on ventriloquism. I am not one of them, but I do have more information that say than the common man. Let's put it that way. And it is a weird art form. Let's be honest. Ventriloquism is bizarre.
It really is. I found a book years ago, Taylor, called Dumbstruck. I don't know if
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Great book.
okay. Well, anyways, I found this book and it was really going to the depth and the history of ventriloquism, and that's what interested me. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, not that it matters, but I was a professional magician before I ever became a comedian. So I have a background in sleight of hand. I have a background in some of the top magicians in the world because we were friends. I was in Southern California performing close-up magic back in the 80s. So I know a lot of these guys. But meanwhile, I collected a library of sleight of hand and all kinds of eclectic arts. And I have a couple books on ventriloquism because I was curious. I wonder how this works. Who knows? Maybe I'll use this some, I don't know. But I am at least interested in how it works and how one even acquires this skill because the truth is everybody kind of thinks they can do ventriloquism, everybody can kind of play around with it, but to learn the technique is actually not that easy, especially with certain letters and so forth that you have to be able to pronounce without your lips touching or your tongue. And people don't know that until you learn how you're basically counterfeiting certain words with a sound that gives the illusion that you're saying, what is it, V's and B's? I'm trying to even think about it now. But, anyways, that being said, it's fascinating and it's interesting. And I will say this. Maybe I should just get this out in the open. I've had a joke that I have used for years in my comedy. I grew up as a Christian, by the way, and maybe we'll get into your life in religious element if that exists as well. But I grew up as a Christian, and so I grew up in Sunday school, and guys oftentimes would do puppet shows
Oh
and
yeah.
little thing, what do you call it, felt graphs and all these things. So I kind of grew up with that world, and it was just usually some older guy doing his thing, and he wasn't great at it. And God bless him, he was just trying to, minister to children. But to me, it was funny because it was kind of like the low budget based church basement version of this thing. So so when I performed and have used this for years, I would be doing my comedy, and you might be familiar a little bit with my show. I don't know if you are. It's aggressive, it's sophisticated stand-up comedy. It's not what you would normally think of as Christian comedy. And that's what kind of set me apart when I started kind of building the name for myself. And I would do a joke, and people would kind of like be startled by it. And I'd say, I love watching the faces of the people out there because they're always like, "Oh, he's a Christian comedian. Great. Where's your puppet?" And I'd always say,
That's
"Where's your?"
funny.
And then they would laugh. And then, don't leave. I didn't mean to insult you. I promise. It was not. It was nothing against you. You were wonderful.
That's
Do
funny
not
though.
walk out on my interview. That would be a first. Okay. But I'd say, where's your, and they'd laugh. And I'd say, oh, there's one guy in the back with his trunk going, let's get out of here. He's gone too far this time. So
Ah,
I would make a joke about, the old bad puppet guy. And it was no indictment about ventriloquism in general. It was about my growing up in Sunday school. So, anyways, my point is simply this. I think that it's possible that, and we'll start here, that ventriloquism probably could be broad brushed as a lower form of the performing arts, maybe not as considered as, I don't know, as sophisticated as music or musicians or comics or actor. I'm just saying, it could be easily caricatured or stereotyped in that regard. And I think it's really no different than any other art. There's good comics, there's bad ones. There's great actors, there's amateur actors. And the truth is, I could sit here all day and say how lowbrow ventriloquism is. And then I could say, yeah, well, go tell that to Jeff Dunham because he's a millionaire.
Right.
Go tell
Terry
that.
Fader.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's Ari Fader. Go tell that to the girl that won America's
Elsie Lynn Farmer. Right.
Yes. So my point is this, and I won't, and I'm gonna stop my soliloquy here as after I finish this and let
No,
you.
keep going. I'm enjoying this.
Well, okay. So I will be honest
Good.
and vulnerable enough to say that I don't know that I ever had a lot of respect for ventriloquism. Because I guess my version would have been Edgar Bergen 1930s black and white Charlie McCarthy stuff. But I worked with Dunham. He was headliner, and I opened for him. And the dude was selling out and killing it. And here's the truth about it, Taylor. It helped me redefine what a ventriloquist was. And here's what I mean by that. Throughout, I'm a stand up comic. So in comedy history, before there was monological comedy, there were teams Abbott and Costello, the Marx Brothers. I'm trying to think of some others off the top of my head. But, um, Abbott, oh no, the guy, the fat guy and the skinny guy.
Laurel and Stanley.
Laura Hardy. Okay. So here's what I'm getting at. They are classic, iconic comics. And I realized, and this might be overstating the case again. I promise I'm about to finish, and I'm going to let you take the.
Yeah, I
take-
was wondering, does the guest get to speak on
Yeah,
this
I know you do.
podcast?
But I wanted to really set this up so we could really get to the depth of
Good.
your experience. So I'm kind of giving you 2 or 3 questions at the same time so you can comment. But what I did realize is if you're good at ventriloquism, and that means, frankly, you're a good joke writer, that you really are good with your timing and your joke writing, all you're doing is you're a comedy team. You're Abbott and Costello. It's just that the puppet is playing the straight man or the funny guy, and the ventriloquist actually is pretty talented because he's playing both roles. And so that being said, it helped me redefine, frankly, my bigotry towards ventriloquism.
You're a ventriloquist bigot.
Yeah,
Ventriloquist bigot.
so okay, so that's the long intro. So I'm going to let you take it from here and kind of define does those stereotypes something perhaps you've experienced? Does that make sense? And just kind of tell us a little bit about your career, how you got into it, and how you see this incredible art form that is very old and that you've made a wonderful living in your life. Take it from here, Taylor Mason.
Okay, well, first, Brad, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm very grateful. And please feel free to, I'm going to just wax rhapsodically here and you just feel free to interrupt as we go. Let's start with our shared faith. We are Christians, people of faith.
Great.
So in the Bible, and I don't do doctrine, so please don't turn off but in the Bible, there's a story of the Witch of Endor. This is a very obscure story in the Bible, but we're talking about Saul, the Philistines, and the Witch of Endor is talking to a dead person. I'm not going to get into everything, but the Witch of Endor, and this is, thousands of years ago. Well, I'm just talking biblically, Brad. So the Witch of Endor is, she has been banished because she is a quote unquote witch. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm going to start is our shared faith and an obscure story in the Bible about Saul, the Philistines, Samuel. It's in the book of Samuel, and the Witch of Endor. Okay, so for our generation, for you and I who grew up with microphones, speakers, headphones, all kinds of sound that can be augmented electronically, ventriloquism really shouldn't scale at all, because ventriloquism, that the voice that's coming out of the quote unquote puppet could be on a video or an audio tape or a pre-recorded thing. You know, I mean, that is the crux of it right there. But if you go back to Bible times and the Witch of Endor, she's talking to a dead person, you know, in a grave, who's warning that the Philistines are going to wipe people out. How she knew that information, I don't know, but I don't believe that the Witch of Endor was a witch. I think she probably, my opinion this is go back, as you said, to Sunday school, you know, Mrs. Morgan, when the Witch of Endor was talking to him in the grave, what do you mean, Taylor? Oh, was she a ventriloquist? No, she was really, you know. So that is pretty much, that's how I started, in a church basement, and I was talking at the time to a sock. Why was I talking to a sock? Brad, this is for our generation. When I was a little boy, I had a lisp. I could not say the letter F. And I'm not trying to make fun of people who have speech impediments, but let's, you and I, just from a comedian standpoint, talk about that impediment for a moment. I think it's a ripoff to name an impediment with a word that has the letter that the child cannot pronounce correctly in the word. That by itself is kind of, I have a lisp.
Right.
Not only are you saying, so my grandmother, Mildred Mason, without a high school education, thought that if I learned ventriloquism, how to talk without moving my lips, I would have to think and concentrate and focus and make my sock on my hand say the letter S correctly. Where would she get that idea? Because we grew up in an age when ventriloquism was still considered, a la the Witch of Endor, you know, centuries before, a unique, interesting, and fun, dynamic, entertaining form of show business on television. Paul Winchell, Jimmy Nelson, and a lady named Sherry Lewis, who had a sock on her hand that was a farm animal. My family farms. My father was a farm news broadcaster, which is kind of like saying he worked for Kodak now, but he was a farm news guy. My family farmed. Here's this lady on TV with a talking Charlie horse or a talking lamb chop. She says her S's perfectly without moving her lips. And my grandmother thinks, you know, what the heck, my grandson, maybe if he learned ventriloquism, would learn how to say the letter S correctly through his sock puppet, which led me to a career. Now, ventriloquism, again, just coming off of your, as you said, soliloquy at the beginning of our program here today. Another good example, thousands of years ago, is the Oracle at Delphi.
Yes.
Another woman, and I don't find this ironic at all, Brad, that women are at the forefront of what you have loosely termed an art form. So the Oracle at Delphi, if you're not familiar, do you know who I'm talking about, Brad?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to bring up the Witch of Endor and the Oracle as.
So you and I are thinking the same way.
Yeah. But people have referenced this must have been ventriloquism, or that was their speculation as what was happening.
Oh, I believe it, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you and the last time you and I worked for a guy named Stan Bernstein, and we had done a show, I can't remember, but I remember talking to you, and you used to do a thing with dental floss.
Oh, right.
Right. And I remember you watching and thinking, oh, he's a magician, right? Just based on what I saw. And I always wanted to talk to you because I always thought, oh, you know what? Stein might get it. A lot of people don't. Anyway, the Oracle of Delphi. Here's a woman. This is, again, thousands of years ago. There's no sound. There are no speakers. There are no microphones. There's no sound augmentation of any kind. But here's this woman in a cave, right? And the leaders from other countries and other places come to her for advice, financial advice, military advice, personal advice. They're leaders they come into this cave, water is dripping. And then, you know, the Oracle of Delphi says, you know, are you there? And from, you know, somewhere in the cave, yes, I'm here, right? And is there going to be a war between, I don't know, Mesopotamia and the bad guys? Oh, yes, there's going to be a war. What should they do? Build more weapons. And then she started to say, you should build more weapons. Why would I build more weapons? Didn't you hear him? He just told you. Okay. Right. And then they would, I'm not making that up, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm exaggerating. But okay, so the Oracle of Delphi, she would come out of the cave. And now, can you talk? You would ask her, can you ask him now? there's a little bit of similar to being in a comedy club as a ventriloquist today. The other comedians are not exactly respectful of me. Same with the Oracle of Delphi coming out of the cave. Now the leader of the other country, or probably his vice leader, comes up to the Oracle of Delphi. Hey, listen, not for nothing. Can you talk to him out here? And the Oracle of Delphi, well, no, because it's the same for the ventriloquist. Why don't you do some ventriloquism here in the green room for us? Well, I need a puppet. No, so it's kind of the same thing. So that's my opinion is Witch of Endor, and you and I are thinking the same way. Witch of Endor, Oracle of Delphi are using sound. Mm-hmm. And this is so interesting because stand-up comics who, I'm being general here as somebody who knows show business. I've been doing this for my entire life. Stand-up comics view ventriloquist like a 4-letter word. And maybe that's the way it should be viewed because, as you said, when you first saw ventriloquist in a church basement, it wasn't the most highbrow form of entertainment. Even as a child, you knew there was something weird about this.
Yeah.
And so stand-up comics look at this and say, oh my gosh, anybody could do this. I could take a puppet but to me, no, there's a lot that goes into it. And I'll stop my little soliloquy here in just a second. What is ventriloquism circa 2025? I'll tell you what it is. You need really, really great material. You need a really interesting or dynamic or very entertaining puppet or figure or mannequin, whatever you want to call the thing that you're working with. And you need great technique. So there are 3 things that you have to have, which is if you're a musician, what do you need? You need a great song. You need great technical skill, and you have to have some ability as a showman, a performer, to do that as a musician. So it's not that far away. What is a stand-up comic? What is a stand-up comic is you need great content. You have to perform it in a dynamic, entertaining way. And then there's other things, one of them being you have to know how to use sound. Because if you watch a stand-up comic, and you're a great example of this, the way that you use sound is because Brad Stein's show is not a guy standing behind the mic doing one-liners. That's not the Brad Stein show. You're using sound. You're all over the stage,
right?
Talking to people. You're shouting at God. You are just, and but so there's not that much difference between us. And then the last thing I'll say is, when it comes to content for ventriloquists, as you brought up a couple of Terry Fader and Darcy Lynn Farmer, a lot of ventriloquism is singing, which I personally don't have a problem with. Go for it. I'm more joke oriented because I'm from your generation where we need every 15 seconds a really good punchline. So, and that's kind of how I look at my act is it's a sitcom and I've got these different characters and I bring them to life on stage and hopefully everybody has a great time.
Well, excellent summary of not only kind of what got you into it, because I'm sure that's the first thing everybody asks you as a interviewer. And one thing I always try to do is like not ask the obvious questions because I just feel like I would rather find a new angle if it's possible. But some things have to be discussed, right? I mean, that's kind of what we need to understand because what interests me, Taylor, is people that can do things I can't. What interests me is people that know things I don't, because otherwise I can just interview myself. If I'm just going to talk about stuff I know, what I want to go is to the guys that can give me some insight and some just new ways to think. And I love performing arts. I do. I'm like you. I've kind of been doing it my whole life. And I just love the arts. I mean, I just do. And it's a very specific skill set. It's not for everybody. Matter of fact, it's not for most because it's hard and it's dangerous because you might be ridiculed and
okay. So let me stop you right there. So
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My life. First of all, my mother and father, as I said, a few hours ago, my father was a farm news broadcaster. My mom and father met at WSOY in Decatur, Illinois, named for the soybean capital of the world. As I said, my father's a farm news broadcaster. How did they find each other? At this little radio station in Decatur, Illinois. When they grew up during the Great Depression, I love telling this story. The number one act, the Seinfeld of the 1930s, the Friends TV cast of the 1930s, all right, the Big Bang Theory of the 1930s was a man named Edgar Bergen and his puppet, Charlie McCarthy. It was ventriloquism on the radio.
Yeah.
Hence a Great Depression. Because what's more depressing than an entire culture, right? Okay. My parents, how did my parents discover? Now, this is, again, this all has to do with sound. And Brad, I don't want to bore your audience, so you just stop me whenever you feel like
No,
it.
no, no. Listen to me. No, you're here to say everything you want to say because I wouldn't have brought you on here if I didn't find you fascinating and what you do is fascinating. And the biggest thing is, Taylor, you did it. You made a living doing this. That's hard to do. So you are a professional. You should be listened to and appreciated for your own skill set. And I certainly do. And as I said earlier,
God bless you.
as I said earlier, I was very honest and vulnerable in that I didn't want it to be an insult. But the truth is, I did not give ventriloquism a lot of credit. And I know why. I know why.
Go ahead.
Because I'm a stand-up comic. And so I grew up, and you and I mean, you're a little older than me, but we're pretty much in the same age. So we grew up in comedy clubs, and there was a class system. I don't know if it's still like that,
Oh, it's
but
still. Oh,
yeah, okay.
hell yeah.
So there was the comic, right? There was the Dave Chappelle's or guys along that line that even the comics said, you got to go listen to this, you got to hear this. Oh my gosh, because it was usually really creative and dangerous and so forth. And then there was just the Jay Leno's who were just great stand-up comics. And then there was the prop acts. Oh, here comes the guy with his guitar doing his song parodies. And it's like, oh, for God's sake. And then here comes the juggling. Are you kidding me? Here comes the comedy magician.
Oh no.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're going to do a little magic, are you? Oh, here comes the ventriloquist. And here's what I think is true. And I'm going to try to limit my commentary because, again, I want your
Go
expertise.
ahead. I love
But
this.
I do want to say this. Here's, I think, the easiest way to sum it up, Taylor. It felt like you were cheating
Right.
because I have to sit here with just my mind, my mouth, and a mic. It's all I get. Don't get a prop. And by the way, I started out as a comedy magician, so I too was part of that lower class. I didn't learn how to do stand up without having props to entertain them to give me permission to keep learning how to make my jokes work until I didn't need it anymore. But it took a while. So I kind of was in that category. And I'm going to be honest, I was a professional magician, sleight of hand artist, and I began to disdain magic. I said, "Oh, this is lower form because comedy is so hard. Straight stand-up comedy is so difficult that I felt like this is a higher form of my art. I'm going to get rid of the props, the magic, and I'm going to see if I can just pull it off with that was my kind of marching orders to myself. Can you do this thing? Can you just get rid of these things and just make them laugh without a prop? Because that was a hard thing to do. So it was kind of me inspiring myself to see if I could accomplish this thing. So I disdained magic for a long time. Oh, you're doing that. Until I got further down the road as a stand up, proved that I could do it. And then I started looking back on, but Brad, magic got you into this. If you didn't have that, you couldn't have done this. And I began to love it for its own sake and its own art form. And I think when I realized that what makes comics good is easy. Do they laugh? If they laugh, I'm a comic. I don't care how I got there. I did it, and I just happened to do it differently than you. So I guess I wanted you to understand my own journey about being more respectful to other people's art form and how easy it is for us to disdain others because we feel like they cheated or are more successful and they didn't have to go the hard route of just doing straight monology. So, anyways, back to you and your thoughts.
No, and I've heard that, from many, believe me, I've heard that. So my own experiences, I'm just going to piggyback on what you're talking about. First of all, so when you're a ventriloquist as a little boy, this is in the 60s. They couldn't even book ventriloquists for children's shows. A la the church basement fat guy with the puppet that you were talking about. So I got bullied a little bit for doing my on a junior high bus, and I'm not going to name the bullies, but Keith, Greg, and Dean, who just made me miserable. But I'm just going to tie this into ventriloquism. So I'd written, and here, a lot of ventriloquism is content. This is what I tell young people. It's not going to matter. Believe me. It's if your puppet is the oldest slot jaw wooden, garbage puppet that everybody's seen and rolls their eyes at, and your technique is terrible. You have terrible technique. If your jokes are funny, you are going to be, you'll be funnier. You will blow the stand-up comics out of the water. Because right now, how many stand-up comics are there? I've worked with 9 this morning when I was cleaning the bathroom. So there are, the stand-up comedy is now, it's de rigueur. Everybody's a stand-up comic.
Right.
I mean, everybody's a stand-up comic. Radio, there must be 20 radio stand-up comedy shows on right now as we're speaking. It's, and that credit to the Jay Leno's and Jerry Seinfeld's, Ray Romano's, Rita Rudner, you can name Roseanne Barr, you can name all of them, all of whom disdain what I do as a ventriloquist. I got bullied a lot, so I'm used to when I'm in the comedy clubs, when the comics would make disparaging, mean, vulgar, profane statements to me. I work squeaky clean about what I do for a living. I'd been bullied. Well, I'll put it this way. I got bullied to the point where I would sob every day, big baby, a mama's boy. So my parents from the 1930s, what do you do when your kid's being bullied? What do you do when your kid with a lisp and the puppet boy is being bullied? Well, you call the high school football coach and have him come in and talk to your son. So I was in 8th grade sobbing, and the football coach says, if you come out for football, you can get back at all these people. And I, of course, I would never hit anybody. I was taught never to hit anyone. Oh, you won't be hitting anybody, said Coach Strode, who was very kind. You'll be wearing a helmet and pads, and no one will get hurt. Really? Yep. So first day, I get to go to freshman football practice. I'm not an athlete by any stretch of it. My parents are not athletic. My family grew up in Illinois. Again, my parents met at a little tiny radio station, and my entire family would sit around these big radio consoles in the 20s and 30s and listen to the radio. Who were the big stars of that time? Well, there was no LeBron James, but since there was just radio, the big star at the time was this guy named Red Grange. Red Grange went to the University of Illinois. Now I'm going to Ottawa High School, and I'm a freshman in high school, actually Hinsdale Central High School when I was a freshman. And there's Keith, the bully from the bus stop, dressed up, but he doesn't look like a football player to me. As I'm playing offensive guard, he looks like a target. I knocked him down, and the next thing you know, I'm a college football player. So I would go to the University of Illinois, I play college football. How does this all tie in? 1, there's a thing called the tackling dummy. 2, I work with the dummy. There's your classic sitcom joke. And we can get into joke writing if you want to later. So I got hurt badly on the AstroTurf of the 70s, the plastic on top of cement, debilitating injury to my left knee.
Wait a minute. You played college football?
Okay, so let me just start. Let me go back. I don't want to. Okay, yeah. So I'll tell one story. So I'm going to tell one quick story. Yes, I know. I've heard. You're in. I've been bullied, Brad, so much by people. So you're in show business? Yes. What do you do? I'm a ventriloquist. You're a ventriloquist? You played college football? You play the piano?
No, but good. That's what I'm saying. That's very cool.
You're a writer? Wait a minute. No, you're not. You're just this worthless piece of, I wouldn't pay to see you, really. Well, I'm selling out the Moonlight Theater on Saturday night in St. Charles, Illinois, but you're nobody. I've been bullied.
Wow.
The chip on my shoulder, you can't see it, but it's the size of the Rock of Gibraltar, and there's not a chiropractor on the planet. But as a person of faith, to get back to that, I have learned to turn the other cheek and allow people to be really mean. It's heartbreaking. So yes,
well, I hope you never heard my joke, because I don't want to add to your trauma.
Oh no, I'm so used to it. So let's get back to college football. So, all right, on my high school team, we had 15 guys, so I played a lot. Believe me, I'm not a great athlete. I was a walk-on at the University of Illinois. What's a walk-on? Let me define everything. A walk-on is somebody who was not recruited by the university, was not asked to come play at the university, was not needed by the university, but shows up anyway, and that's me. I walked on at the University of Illinois. Why would I walk on there? Because my grandparents and my parents loved Red Grange, and he's the galloping ghost, and he went to the University of Illinois. I walk on, and for whatever reason, I make the team. How do I make the team? Because I take my nose and I drive my nose into the head of people who are much bigger, stronger, faster, and are blue chip 5-star athletes. And I played 5 years. I'll tell one story. When I was a senior, we played this team you might have heard of called the Ohio State University. Okay, we're playing them, and their head coach is my size. He's the only other guy in the field my size. His name is Woody Hayes. He's a living icon. He's a legend. He has put Columbus, Ohio, and Ohio State University on the map as the head coach of a dominant Division I college football program. He sees me warming up, and look, we make eye contact, and he says in his squeaky little voice, "You're a Big Ten football player?" and walks away. Of course, the chip on my shoulder gets bigger. Fourth quarter, 16-10, Ohio State's winning. 16-10, we're in the game. And I push number 44 out of bounds. And there he is standing right in front of me. I can see him to this day, Woody Hayes, black baseball cap with a red O, black like windbreaker with a white open collar shirt and a clipboard. And I said, "Yeah, I am a Big Ten football player, and I just pushed your boy out of bounds." I turned to run back on the field, Brad. He chased me onto the field, screaming things at me that are not in the Bible. 1 month later, my dad and I are watching a college football bowl game. This is a true story. You can see it on YouTube. Clemson versus Ohio State in the Gator Bowl. And Ohio State's winning until a Clemson player intercepts a pass and is running down the sideline. And with the good Lord as my witness, Woody Hayes tackles the Clemson player. My dad looks at me and says, "Who do you think drove Woody Hayes over the edge, buddy?" And I said, "I think it's me, Dad." And that mentality right there, just that right there is kind of a ventriloquist mentality. You go into a comedy club. I was the MC at Catch a Rising Star in New York City for probably 5 years. Who was there? Chris Rock, Dennis Miller, Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld, Richard Lewis, name Richard Belzer, Eddie Murphy, everybody, Robin Williams, everybody. I was not liked. I was not respected, but here's what I was. I was really good at working with the audience, and I was really good at breaking up. Gilbert Gottfried would go on and just lay the audience out, or better yet, Larry David would go on and just ruin the night for everybody, call the audience Nazis, and everybody's angry. So I would have to go back up there and change the atmosphere of the room in 2 minutes. Well, as we were talking about, a ventriloquist is a little bit different. And if you've got any content to your performance, you're going to suck the audience right back in. And now I'm going to bring up, Roseanne Barr. Okay. And now the audience is back. They're laughing again. And so I worked there for probably 4 or 5 years. I was not respected, not loved, not a lot of people going to come to my defense, and I don't care. It gave me a great deal of confidence, because not only can I do great ventriloquism, but I'm also really good on the piano. I was a musical director at the Second City Theater in Chicago, and I can do stand-up comedy. So those things put together are kind of my calling cards, and that allows me to work. Plus the always ever-present chip on my shoulder, because as a ventriloquist, you better get used to the fact that if you're going to be a novelty act or a variety act, then you might as well just get used to the fact that there are people who see that as the lowest form of entertainment there is. And what my job is in front of an audience of jaded folks who've seen every kind of entertainment there is, I need to take my craft to another level so that it doesn't appear that I'm some old guy who couldn't do anything else and really wants kind of shy or has personal issues and is making everything come out through his arm in the form of a ventriloquist puppet. That's not what I do, but I understand that mentality because I've been around it my entire professional career.
Wow. Okay, so I've just been overwhelmed and flooded.
Yeah, start anywhere, and we can talk about whatever you
Well,
like.
no, and we're going to, but I want you to understand something, because this is what's beautiful about honest discussions is truth is revealed, and insights are revealed, and emotions and psychology are revealed. I had no concept, that you were a football player, not that.
Oh. let's say this. I was the worst player on the worst team in the history of Big Ten college football. And I'm sure my teammates don't want to hear that. Keith Burlingame, I know you might be listening. I'm sorry. Randy Taylor, I'm sorry. I was, you know, I have so many stories. We played this team called Michigan State University at home, my final home game. And this is another great story. And you could hear my dad. Remember, my dad was a radio broadcaster from, you know, the 40s and 50s. So you'd be in this stadium of 70,000 people and you could hear my father, but he didn't know anything about sports. So he would yell stuff like, bite their noses off, buddy. And this is the 70s, and the referees would come over. And I'm a fifth-year senior, I got redshirted, which means I got an extra year of eligibility. So I'm a fifth-year senior, and referees would come over to me during the games. Hey, 96, are you going to graduate? Or 96, you know, how many kids do you have? Hey, 96, have you thought about life insurance? You know, they would say these nasty little things to me, but good-natured. So the last home game of my career, one of the referees comes over to me and says, listen, I've been watching you for the last 5 years. The referees and I go to dinner. This is it's not like this now, I guarantee, but we go to dinner at this bar here in Chicago, restaurant bar called the Rose Bowl. Why don't you bring your loudmouth dad and your mom, and we'll buy dinner. So we lost like 48-18. We got shellacked. That was Kirk Gibson was on that team, the guy that was the Dodgers home run hitter. I didn't really tackle him. He was running an in, if you know football, and I was a nose guard, but the offensive tackle for Michigan State had shoved me so hard that I was actually playing safety. Yeah. And Kirk Gibson ran over me. So I quote unquote tackled him. You know, you heard tackled by Mason when he actually, I think he was looking ahead to the end zone and I got in the way. So my dad comes into the locker room, you know, very proud, just so, you know, walk on, made the team, played the whole thing. And it's just over. I mean, the emotion is he's sobbing. And I say, well, the referees, and I'm like, Dad, we lost. Come on, you got to hold it together. Well, buddy, we're going to go to dinner. And I say, the referees are going to take you, me, and mom to dinner. And he is just, oh, really? You know, the tears stop. Really? Yes, he can't wait to talk to the referees, you know. So we go to dinner. And at dinner, the guy that ran First Bank in Chicago offers me a job as an account rep at the bank, which I think, and this is a God thing, thank the Lord, I said, no, I want to be a professional ventriloquist. And that was basically your response there was basically the exact response.
No, and this is crazy. Look, what an intriguing, much more later life. I could have possibly. Wait a minute, you're the original Rudy. Except
I've heard that so many times. Here's the difference between me and Rudy. Rudy was on a team that won national championships.
Right.
I was on a team that tied Northwestern 0-0 on a bright, sunshiny day in Champaign, Illinois. Neither team got inside the other team's 40-yard line. Our punter was our leading rusher. Our team prayer was, oh God, not another game. We were always getting called for holding each other. You know, I was on a bad team. I was a bad player on a bad team. So
let me explain something to you though.
Let's not make this something else. I just saw a teammate of mine just sent a picture to me of me with my teammates my senior year. It's like I think the Letterman, the senior graduating Letterman. I'm there. There's like 10 of us, and I'm in the back. I look a little bit like if the Pillsbury Doughboy had joined a Big Ten football roster. There I am, and my wife looks at that. Another better story is this guy, one of our defensive linemen. I live in New Jersey on the beach, and we have friends come. So my friend, defensive lineman, who I shared a position with, came last summer, and he's massive. You forget how big these people are until you're in the same room with them. And my wife said to him, wait, you and my husband played the same position? And he said, yeah, your husband is psychotic. And my wife said, yeah, I'm well aware of my husband's many, many issues.
But listen, okay, so when I played baseball, that was the sport I played.
Oh, I love baseball.
And I was good. I was pretty good. A lot better defender than hitter. But anyways, but I remember growing up, and there was a guy, his name was Dave Leeper, that was his name. And in Little League, he dominated. You know, everybody played sports, and there was always the kid that was the great athlete.
Right. Somebody's going to be.
Yeah, and this guy dominated. Then in junior high, he dominated. And then in high school, he dominated. And he ended up going to USC on a scholarship. So you know how good you are if you were USC. And he dominated. Then he got into the minor leagues, and he dominated. and he got into double A and triple A. Now he played. He was in the Kansas City's
Their
World.
farm program or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah, farm club for Kansas City Royals. This is back in the like Bo Jackson era or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, the 80s,
And
great.
yeah, and so but here's the deal. Here's what I was going to say, and it's something that I really was fascinated by, Taylor, is that this guy in every single level, he dominated. This is a guy that is going to be a professional because he's got that skill set. And what I've learned is that here's how it works. You get into little league and then you move up a little bit to this, and then you move up a little bit to high school, and then you move up a
I
little
know where
bit
you're
to
going.
college, and then you move up a little bit into league, and then you end up into single A. And then if you're good enough, you go a little bit higher into second, and then you get into triple A, and there are all these increments. Now, the final increment is the majors. And here's the what nobody gets. That final increment from single A to double A to triple A, now you want to get majors, is this. It is so rare for anybody to become a professional athlete because it is so hard. The skill set these guys have, the gift they have that puts them into another level
Every,
is something
it's
most of us
everything
don't have.
fast. The ball, the pitchers, the
It's
difference
different.
between those major league pitchers and
It's
those
different.
single A, you know,
It's so
what?
different. But my point I'm going to make to you is this, and I hope you receive it as a compliment. Well, I don't give a crap that you were on a team that wasn't that great. I
Oh,
mean,
we were,
there's always the Yankees, and which everybody hates. They have to. Who would like the Yankees? And I'm was a Dodger fan my whole life, so I have to hate the Yankees.
yeah.
But and there's always the teams that the A's or whatever that are trying to struggle. They don't have the money. But my point is simply this: I don't care. If you're the last guy picked on a major league baseball team and the worst team, you're better than 99% of baseball players in the whole world.
Okay, and so I'm going to one up that and bring that back because you're right. And okay, so I'm self-deprecating because I'm an entertainer. Here's the difference between football. Football, if you can will yourself to not accept the fact that things are going to hurt, your neck is going to hurt, your shoulder is going to hurt, your legs are going to hurt, and your pride is going to hurt. Because these guys, okay, at that level, okay, the NIL, name, image, likeness thing that's on sports now. I'm going to be one of the people that said, and I never had a scholarship, even when I was playing the games. I still, another thing for you to know, and why would I have brought this up to you when we met at the Improv or whatever 40 years ago? Why would I bring this up? Because it's none of your business. You don't want to hear it anyway. And chances are you don't even like me because I'm a puppet act. So I'm not going to, corner you backstage. Like at the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach with the comics. I mean, I'm in that room, Gary Shandling, Larry, all these guys, I am in the corner by myself, ostracized, and I'm used to it. I don't like it, but I'm a ventriloquist, which is how our whole program started. And that mentality comes from being a walk-on and made the team and then got on the field and actually saw playing time. And I guess what I would say to you is when you have when you have a little bit of success like that, when something that you set a goal for yourself that's everybody, as you said, in sports, everybody, every single person is bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic. They're just magical. There are things. I remember watching this game. We played Purdue, and our defensive end, Ernest Adams, I don't know where he is now. He was a defensive end rushing. The Purdue quarterback was this guy who was 6'8", Mark Herman, who would play in the NFL a year later, threw a pass, and like 6 feet away, our defensive end, Ernest, jumps up and intercepts the pass. I mean, and then falls down. And I came off the field. I was sobbing. And my buddy goes, "What's your problem?" And I said, "I'm 22 years old. I couldn't do that. I won't be able to do that in my wildest
Well,
dream.
let me give you another example, and this is an interest in how we've ended up in this, but I think it matters because I think it's more about just the idea of what it takes to overcome other people's perspective of you, your own self created obstacles we give to ourselves,
And where
and
do we, and before we go any further, let me just,
yeah,
you have to have, this is really, really important. You have to have great faith in your faith,
mm,
because there, and that is not just on a football field
yeah,
or in a comedy club or at an audition. And because, like football, my failures, there are so many thousands of fail. I mean, I've failed. I've had 2 auditions. I got rejected just in the last 2 weeks. Just people, no, no, you're too fat. You're too old. You're too white. You're too stupid. You're not good. So it's just a never ending, no, 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 never, never, not you, not you, not you, never, never, never. The chip
yeah,
on my shoulder. You
yeah,
better, and this is for this podcast, I think this is important. You better have great faith in your faith, and that goes for your relationships with
mm,
other people in your business.
mm,
That goes for your own personal well-being, and it goes for when you face obstacles.
yeah.
You better have great faith, and I do. I have great, and I'm not ashamed to say I have an overwhelming amount, a frightening amount of faith in my faith, an
Well, and
overwhelming.
that's again part of why we're talking, just because that can inspire people that are listening or watching this around the world. And it's important because the truth of the matter is life is very quick, very short, and there is a meaning to life. It's the oldest question in human history. What's the meaning of life? And it is answered. It's not complicated. The meaning of life is twofold: know God, tell people about him. That's why we exist. That's it. There's a creator, he designed us, and he has a reason for us to exist.
Amen.
How we do that is our skill sets and our businesses and our interpersonal relationships. That's the way we do it. But we have a reason to exist, and it is to know the one who created us. And just to kind of wrap up the sports analogy, because I'm very impressed that you played for the division.
Fighting Illini.
Well, that's very cool. But just to kind of, I guess, put a, a period on what you learned. I grew up, playing all the way through high school. I was a starting shortstop, senior. But here's the thing: I had taken, I don't know, 10,000 ground balls in my lifetime. I practiced in practice. I knew how to play. Is pretty darn good. There was a guy on the other team called Pete Buchanan. He ended up playing for Notre Dame and like scored a touchdown in the Cotton Bowl. So he was one of those guys. But here's the thing: I knew who he was. We all knew who he was. He's up to the plate. He hits a ground ball to my right between me and the third baseman. I had taken 10,000 ground balls in my lifetime. I knew how to play shortstop. I knew how to catch ground balls, and I knew how to throw people out. He hit a ground ball past me that went, and at second, I said to myself, okay, you better find another profession because you ain't going to be a professional baseball player. Because holy crap, what was that?
A
Well,
rocket.
yeah, and because he had top spin, because he was an athlete that I can't compete. All right, fine. I'm moving on, and that's when I became a magician. Well, listen, I want to take that inspiration, and I don't want to miss this opportunity, though, Taylor, to really understand. Um, the technical elements of ventriloquism, because nobody would know this. Nobody understands what it takes to learn how to do it. Now, again, I bought a book. It shows you how to fake the sounds, right? To make a B and a V sound, you have to
Right.
do different things. And I don't know that it's frankly that difficult, but you do have to work on it. But I'm learning the techniques that really make ventriloquism magic. I don't even think is being able to speak without moving your lips, because even people that are really good at it, once in a while you'll see a little lip
I have a
move.
lip movement, something.
It's not like it's just perfect. So I've learned, but they're really good at it, better than obviously someone who doesn't do it. But here's something that I really started picking up. And you know where I picked this up? It's another ventriloquist. And here's the thing that people listening to me need to understand: I'm a Christ follower. I've never cursed in my show. I'm not going to, because I don't need that. I always find it more fascinating to be clean and be comedic because it's harder. So that's much more interesting to me. Plus, as a man of faith. I just don't use that nomenclature as my typical means of communicating. And again, I think it's just more creative. Though, when I performed in clubs, the guys in front of me always cursed, and I never told them not to. That's their business to do it. And I felt like if I can't follow them, maybe I shouldn't be call myself a comic.
Amen.
And here's the thing, though, because I didn't get the F word as access to getting laughs that they got, I had to make up for that by finding other ways to be as dynamic. So I became more hyperactive and more energetic and more loud and using the vocal dynamics to make point. I had to find other ways to replace the F word because I didn't get that. Okay. So that being said, but I'm a comic. Probably, I think the smartest and probably the best comic I have ever seen in my lifetime was George Carlin. He was the smartest comic I've ever seen. He was the most sophisticated and dynamic. And that guy cursed, I mean, like a sailor. He was an atheist, so he hated my faith and people that thought like me. But I could still step back and go, I don't talk like that, and I don't believe in those topics, conclusions. But I can still say, but holy smoke, can this guy do comedy? Oh my gosh, are you good? So
Yeah.
I'm not turned off by the language because I have no other option. Most guys do that. So I'm able to separate parts of their technique and still appreciate what they're really great at. Okay. So that means I had to set it up and you'll see why in a second. So there's a woman who's a ventriloquist that I have seen clips of that is great, and she's Australian. And and one of her bits is I'd never seen it until she did it. It must be a standard now for. I just hadn't seen it because I'm not a big ventriloquist aficionado. But she puts this face on these
Her
people.
name is Nina Conti. And
Okay,
she's not
that's it.
Australian. She's from the UK.
Okay, that's it. That's it.
And her parents, to just bring this full circle, her mother and father were big sitcom stars.
Oh,
In the UK, they were on a sitcom together. And she grew up, and this goes back to what you talked about at the very beginning of this podcast, where ventriloquists a lot of times are like a comedy duo.
yeah.
Nina Conti's parents were a more or less, for lack of a better word, a comedy duo. And Nina, I use a similar mask in my act. I just took what Nina, I know what you're talking about. Nina puts a mask on a human being and then improvises a comedy routine. I just took that to the next level. So I have 4 people on stage. I give all of them a puppet. Most of them have never had a puppet on their hand before. Plus, one person has this mask on, and now they're a human puppet. So now I have to throw my voice, improvise, throwing my voice into the puppet's mouth and creating comedy on the spot,
Yes.
which is a way to, and this is a whole nother thing for the comedy industry that we're in, because a lot of comedy used to be as an MC at Catch Rising Star and at Zanies in Chicago. The funniest comedian I know is Emo Phillips, who's just brilliant. But I'm a Carlin fan. But a lot of MCing in comedy clubs is looking at the audience saying, where are you from? What do you do for a living? Are you married? Thank you. Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Are you married? Are you? And if you could, and that has become full circle. For a while, that was considered by comedians, well, anybody can do that. You need to have material, you need content, but it's come full circle now, Brad, because a lot of the young comedians that I work with and see in comedy clubs, their whole act is, where are you from? What do you do? Who are you sleeping with? They're much more,
Right.
it's because of the internet. It's a different world. But that idea of coming up with material on the spot, different in the moment there, has become, and Nina Conti is one of the best. I'm glad
All
you
right,
brought.
so let me comment on that for a second because that's kind of where I wanted to discuss this a little bit. So there's a lot of reasons why. You'll see why in a second. So number one, I my career started in the late 80s, full time. So I always improvised. I still to this day will go out in the crowd oftentimes. And the only other person I ever saw do that was Robin Williams. And he did it before me. So I'm not, he
Right,
didn't.
I understand what you're saying. I've seen you do this, and you're really good at it.
Yeah, well, thank you. But always, I just am dynamic in that, and I'm only bringing it up just to say this is my style. But I'm good at improvising. Okay, so the reason I say that is not because it's any big deal. It's just I'm good at it, so I do it. They now call it crowd work.
Yes.
And they give clips of themselves doing crowd work like they created something no one had ever seen before. And I'm like, dude, I have been doing, matter of fact, all my crowd work gets cut when I'm making a special because I'm doing the material I actually wrote. That I do crowd work. And you know why I do crowd work for the most part, Taylor? Because I don't normally have an opening act. So I have to find a way to make these strangers suddenly become a cohesive crowd that are laughing together and feel connected. I got nobody warming them up. So I got to find a way to go out and do some personal interaction so everybody realizes, hey, this is off the cuff. This is tailor made. This is made, this is a moment that will never happen because clearly he didn't know a guy was coming here that is wearing a striped suit. Obviously, he didn't know a farmer was going to be. So he had to just make it up on the fly. And I'm grateful I can do it. But I didn't act like that's some special skill set that I need to emphasize. Well, the reason they do that is because they don't have an hour's worth of material. They don't. They don't have a written. I just finished my 7th album. I've got 7 hours
That's a,
written stand-up comedy that I have created over my lifetime. And as you know, it's very hard to come up with an hour. It takes a long time.
it's hard to come up with 5 minutes.
Yeah, it really is. So my point is this. Again, a long setup, but I'm not easily impressed. Okay, I'm a stand-up comic for over 30 years. I mean, I'm grateful when guys are great. I love to have people impress me, and the greatest compliment to me you can give to another person is, I wish I would have thought of that. That to me is the greatest because they mined some gold where I overlooked. So that being said, I know how to do improv.
Ah,
Okay, this Nina Conti. I mean, and here's why it's not the improv that impresses me as much because I can do that. But she has to time the 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 movements that these guys are doing. She almost has to prime these guys and where she's going so they respond to it. Then she has to time clicking the thing so that the mouth
the mouth opens and closes in sync with the words that she, as a ventriloquist,
with the words she's doing while making their body movements seem to correlate with what she's trying to say based on something she started by asking somebody out there or notice somebody. And I mean, and I'm watching that and going, okay, bravo, holy smokes, that is really, really talented. And I'm not even going to stop there because I hate it when people come up to me and they say, "You're great. Hey, have you ever seen Brian Regan?" It's like, why are you talking about Brian Regan? I thought you came to see me. So, and it's almost like you feel insulted, like, talk about me if we're coming to see my show. Talk about them when you leave. But so I'm not trying to act like, she's better or worse. She's just, funny to me is funny. If I laugh at Taylor Mason and then I laugh at Brad Stein and I laugh at Brian Regan and I laugh at Nia, what the difference does it make? We laugh. They're all funny. They all have their own skill. You prefer one style over another one, irrelevant. Now, nobody's better. They just have a different way of doing it. But that being said, it took Jeff Dunham to change my perspective on ventriloquism because this dude was selling out like auditorium
oh,
stadium.
he changed the rotation of the earth.
And this guy, and you know what, Taylor, like I said, I worked with the guy. I have this sense, you probably know him. I'm guessing it's not a huge world of
Not a lot of love there. Not a lot of love, but yeah, I know.
You probably know the guy. But anyways, but here's the point I'm making is that he was a little standoffish, and this was before he became as big as he is now. And maybe part of it was what you're teaching me is that he grew up saying, "Oh, you're the prop guy with your dummies," and he said, "Oh yeah, we'll get a load of this." And now he's kind of like, "Screw you guys. Now what?" But here's the other thing, though. I wonder if there's some this might be a little overstating it, but I'm going to do it just to create some momentum.
Go for it.
Some psychological damage from somebody who's a professional at their craft. If I'm a stand-up, if you're a ventriloquist, if you're a juggler, if you're a magician, You're a professional. They hire you, and you think and you love your stuff because it's very personal. The comedy I came up with, I wrote. The words you put to the mouth of your pup, you wrote that. That's personal to you. And if you insult that, you're basically telling me I'm less than you. I don't belong on the stage with you. And the truth is, well, I kind of do because I'm getting the same laughs and I'm getting the same paycheck. So I'm confused by what I'm not doing just because you don't do it. Uh, so what? I chose a different path than you. It's none of your business. So I almost there. I think you've done some very interesting exposure to me about the trauma. This is going to sound crazy, but it's making an interesting conversation. Ventriloquists, like people have abused you guys. And I'll bet you it happened to Dunham. I'll bet you, maybe not to that girl because she's a girl and she was young, so they leave her alone. And maybe not Nina Connick because she had a pedigree because of her parents. I don't know. But holy
I,
smoke, you
I,
guys,
and
you
here's what I would
guys,
say. Here's what I would say to that. First, okay, let's just get to the basics. Okay, the basics that you were talking about. Anybody could do this. I'm a stand-up comic. I don't have any props. I'm far superior than you are. I get that because I have done stand-up comedy. You're a music act. I also play the piano. I'm what would be the word? Efficient. I'm accomplished as a piano player. I worked at a theater in the Second City in Chicago called the Second City Theater. I was a musical director for the touring company. So I understand the mentality of comedy writers who see that as a crutch.
mm,
And I also understand the mentality of Jeff Dunham, who is creating really dynamic, interesting, entertaining, informative content in a world that revolves around content. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's write a joke. I'm just working on this right now. Um, I didn't want to be a golf announcer. All they do is whisper. Why do they whisper? They don't want to wake the people who are watching at home. So the punchline is don't want to wake the people. Now, from my perspective, how's the funniest? How is that going to be the funniest? I'm just giving you the nuts and bolts of this from your perspective as a comedian and my perspective as a variety novelty act. So I could have been a golf announcer, but I don't. I don't like whispering. And let's face it, the only reason you whisper is so you don't wake the people who are watching at home. Wait a minute. What if I give that joke to the dummy? Okay, so the dummy, what, do you want a job? Are you working? Well, yeah, I want to work. What job did you want? I wanted to be a golf announcer. Why didn't you want to do that? Because all I had to do was whisper. Do you know why golf announcers want to whisper? Yeah, because they don't want to wake the people who are watching at home. Everybody, okay, what's the most powerful laugh there? Is it the stand-up comedy laugh? I would submit to you, it's much funnier that the puppet did the punchline. So that's now I'm not looking at that so much as the way Jeff is, except that what's the difference between what I just told you as a stand-up comedy act doing a joke about golf announcers whispering and the puppet? I'm so sorry, but to me, I think it's a little bit funnier coming from the puppet. And maybe you now, as comedy writers, what do? We tag it. What other puppet jobs have you had? Well, there's a lot of puppet jobs that dummies can have. Tackling dummy. I was a tackling dummy. For who? The Dallas Cowboys. I've never been tackled. There's just a million. I was a voodoo doll. I worked at Disney World. I was whatever. So you're always looking for a tag. So what's the difference? So my question would be then, what is the difference between me as a comedy writer exploring all those narratives around the subject matter of jobs? All right. And now I can improvise off that if I'm on stage doing stand-up comedy and somebody in the audience says, I was a football coach. Really? I happen to have a tackling dummy here with me and I pick up the puppet. What's the difference between what I'm doing as a ventriloquist then and what you're doing as a great stand-up comic?
no, I think that I think you're right. But no, really, seriously, you are helping to unpeel kind of
Well,
the
that's what we're doing here.
of what's happening because it'd be funny as you just said it. I thought it'd be easy to be a golf announcer because first off, you have to whisper so it's not a strain on your voice, and and I always wonder why they did or whatever. And it's because they didn't want to wake the person, and it's funny, but it's a little. mm, I guess contextually, it doesn't really make sense because you're not really a golf announcer. Whereas if you give this character
Amen. Like a
this,
sitcom.
yeah, so
Like
he suddenly, and then if he were to say, there's lots of jobs for us. I could be a tackling dummy. Really, for who? For the Dallas Cowboys. Well, why'd you choose them? Well, I knew it would be the one team I'd never get hurt, or
there you
something
go.
like.
See, you're thinking.
Yeah.
So
So,
you're
but what I'm learning about this, and I kind of stumbled on this on my own, but you're helping me, uh, uh, unpack it even more deeply because it's your skill is that it's a team. You're a comedy team, and that you don't see that much anymore. So you're not thinking of uh, you know Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, and you're not thinking of those guys anymore because you really don't see it, and so it feels like you're just using them as a prop, but they're not. They're your partner in doing what used to be considered a very valid form of comedy, which is a duo.
and if you have to get back to everything that's involved here. So now you hit the nail on the head, but now there's also a lot. And your reference to Nina Conti is perfect because she doesn't move her lips. At the same time, she's making this person who has a ventriloquist mask on, improvising comedy lines, saying all those letters. P's. The hard letters to say are the labial sounds. BFM, VPW. Those are the hard letters to say. So very quickly, for example, how can you make the W sound, W, W, without moving your lips? Just think about it. You have to put your lips in a position, W. How do you do it as a ventriloquist? As you said, 3 hours ago when we started, you're finding substitute sounds and you have to practice them. I say 6 months per each one of those labels. So 6 letters you have to practice, BF, M, VPW, that 6 months each. That's 36 months. Work hard on it 3 years. You'll be doing perfect ventriloquism, add content, a la Jeff Dunham, Nina Conti, Darcy Lynn Farmer, Terry Fader, etc. You'll be making a living in comedy clubs or cruise ships. Somebody's going to hire you to do those performances. How do you do it? Very quickly. The W. How would you make the W sound without moving your lips? Here's how you would do it. You would say ooh really fast, and then you would say ah. Now say ooh ah. Now say it without moving your lips. Ooh ah. Do it really fast. Ooh ah. Do it faster. Oh, good. We're almost there. Say water. Water. Whoa, you just said water without moving.
Okay.
Whoa, okay. Now you can. Now I'm not going to get into everything because it'll take a half an hour to go through it. B's and P's are hard. F's and B's are not hard.
Which one is the hardest? If you had, is there
Well,
the hardest letter?
M, P, and B are really hard, and a lot of the ways to do this. And to I'm really getting into the weeds here inside baseball. Just keep it out.
No, this is part of why I brought you on because people don't know how you guys learn this thing.
Okay, so let's look at the letter B. You're going to say buh. Okay, say butter, dutter. No, say buh, duh. No, that's a D sound. What you do, Brad, is you put them in the mind of the audience. The puppet makes the D sound, duh, before it makes the B sound, buh. So say dog, dog. Now say bubba, bubba. Good. Say peanut butter, peanut butter. No, don't say dutter. Say butter, butter. Good. Say peanut butter, peanut butter. Okay, perfect. So what I did was I set up your ear. I set you up. This is going back to the Oracle of Delphi, who probably did the same, and the Witch of Endor, who probably did the same little vocal gyrations and tricked people by making a D sound without moving their lips and looking around. I'm the dog. Oh, there's a dog. What color are you? Blue. You're a blue dog. I'm a blue dog. Okay. So I tricked you by first saying the D sound, and then I substituted something in between a B and a D, but because I said it quickly and I didn't move my lips and it came out blue, blue. Oh my gosh, he can make the letter B without moving his lips. He's brilliant. The Witch of Endor must be talking to him. He's dead. Saw, look out. There's going to be, the Oracle of Delphi. We're going to die. Who told you? The Oracle of Delphi. So,
but that's exactly. Thank you for just summarizing that so quickly. That's exactly kind of what I'm saying is that it's not as easy as it seems. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks it's easy to do ventriloquism, but I don't think they think it's hard. And so, but what I love about it, because as a magician, someone who is a magician,
Very
so
similar.
much of it is psychology. Is that a lot of it isn't just that you know how to pretend to put a coin in your hand and make it disappear, but that's psychology. It's what they call misdirection. How do I make you follow something I need you to follow, not look where I need you to look? So there's all these other psychological things. You don't even know what's going on that
Right. There's
make the
distraction.
whole thing
There's
work.
a lot of distraction.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to interrupt you. Not on Oracle at Delphi, not out in a field. She's not
Yeah.
talking to the government official in the field. She's in a cave,
Yeah.
water dripping, there's echoing, there's a whole bunch of stuff, so that when that voice comes down, you're gonna die. Who is gonna die? The military leader. He's gonna die. Yes, he is. Oh my gosh, you're gonna die. Ah!
But you're right. They were using natural acoustics to get the volume. You know, when I talked to you when we started, and by the way, we've only gone an hour, so if we go a little bit longer,
Whatever you want.
why not? If unless you have to go. But when I read that Dumbstruck book,
Great book.
a couple
Highly
things.
recommend it. Very
Yeah,
good book.
I mean, it's very academic, so it's got some dry parts too.
Oh yeah, it's like
But
college class.
but what the one thing that stuck out the most to me was a phrase where he talked about the idea that what makes ventriloquism so mm, mysterious and almost creepy is that when you hear a voice, it means it has to be attached to a being. A human has to be involved. So a disembodied voice is really spooky, and um, the numinous, as C.S. Lewis talked about, the difference between saying there's a door and there's a tiger behind that door, or there's a door and there's a ghost behind that door. The tiger is scary, but you kind of know what you're dealing with. But a ghost is something else. It's like I don't even know what it is, and it's a sacred fear because it's something grander and metaphysical.
You can go another level with that. You can go
Okay.
another. So I'm standing up in front of a door here,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Here's a door. Mike, can you come out? No. Come on out. No. Come on out. I'm on Brad Stein's podcast. Really? Yeah. Do you want to come out? No. Come on out. Oh, there's no mic. Okay, so it's the same thing.
Yes.
All right, it's the same exact thing that you're just talking about.
Yes.
I didn't just say, this is not what I did. Hey, how are you? I'm good. I did this. Hey, Mike, are you there? I did what you just said. I set it up. Mike, yeah. Are you here? Yeah. Do you want to come in? No. Come on in. I'm on Brad Stein. No. Okay, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to, what I'm doing is I'm taking what you were just talking about. There's nobody behind the door, but in my mind,
Yeah.
improvising, I can see Mike is short, fat. He's got a beard. He's wearing a baseball cap backwards. He's got a white T-shirt on. He's some kind of worker. I don't know what he's doing in my house, but he's a friend of mine. What the heck? Well, I'm on the Brad Stein.
No, but this is the thing is that in what you just did too, and I appreciate actually you giving us that demonstration, even though people listening audio won't know. But the visuals will. But
that's still, listen, that's the thing. Radio, it still works. That's why I did this. Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Well,
and people, and the beautiful thing about radio, or those who will be listening on the podcast, audio only, is they'll do what happened with Edgar Bergen. They will fill in the blanks. I will picture that guy's. I'll make my own guy. The small, fat, bearded cap guy that you just described. The other guy said, "No, that's not what he is.
right.
He's really tall and he's wearing a scuba gear. I mean, they'll make up whatever they want him to be." But I do want to stop here and add another piece to this puzzle of your skill, because I think this is the part that is difficult to understand if you're just reading a manual on how to do ventriloquism, which I have done because I was just curious about it and I played around with it, and I kind of could make the sound. They're not as good as you, but I could kind of do it and play around with it. But you are giving us a couple technical elements that are so important that people don't understand is what makes ventriloquism work. First off, it is learning to mimic the hard sounds that can't be done without putting your lips together. You have to be able to replicate that in a false way. And if you really just listen, you will hear it wasn't exactly because you
Right.
can't because it has to have a closed lip. But you do it, you get it close enough. But you said something that was interesting. I didn't know, and this is the skill, is that you guys have to set up what we expect is coming so
Mm,
so our mind fills in the blank
magic.
for us. But here's another part that I don't think is probably easily taught from a book. You probably need to mentor with a ventriloquist, and that is that voice has to be contained in a part of your larynx. I don't even know, part of
Right.
your throat.
You're swallowing it down
It
into your
has
diaphragm.
that, because if you remember, I know you'll know this. I don't have to explain it to you. Those guys that grew up in the '60s, like you and I, we all had comic books, and at the back of the comic books, they
Oh,
always,
yeah, I know where you're going.
yeah. So they always had these cool things that you could buy, X-ray specs that for 50 cents you could buy glasses that would allow you to see naked women if all the stuff that made, 8-year-old boys, get out their doors. I want one of them.
Right.
But they all had a ventriloquist uh,
Gimmick.
gimmick. And I think I either bought one or at least came
Oh,
across
Lord.
it one time. And it was like a little plastic tube or some kind of
Yep.
thing. Anyways, it was nonsense. It didn't work. But the point is, they would show a graphic of a guy looking at a trunk,
Right.
and the guy, and coming out of that like sort of sound was like, help, I'm stuck in a trunk. And
Right.
it's like you understood, oh, this is what they used to call ventriloquism. We haven't even brought up this term. Throw your voice.
Okay, so let me just stop you right there. And because you're right. And I did not buy. Okay, remember my father grew up with Edgar Bergen.
Yeah.
So my father bought me a ventriloquist puppet when I was probably 11. And what it was a sock, a stuffed sock, and a plastic slot jaw Charlie McCarthy. It was made of plastic, probably made in China or South Korea or Vietnam at the time, even though it was the 70s. And plastic. The head was plastic and a wooden, not even wooden. It was just a head stuck into a cloth sock, wearing a checkered suit, and in the back of the neck of the puppet was a string that you would pull and the mouth would open. It was my father. Now remember, my father, I had been bullied and didn't know what to do. And my dad and I together got a lathe and and built a body. We ripped the whole thing apart and rebuilt the body. So think mortar and pestle he built a neck, and the neck fit into this mortar and pestle. And then he put a wooden dowel in the bottom of the neck and extended the string with another string so that I could, and then put a hook at the end of that so I could put my fingers around the wooden dowel and my thumb in the hook of the string so the puppet mouth would open and close. And then we built, for lack of a better word, a puppet body, put back the cheap clothes that it had. My father named it for me. He named it Ted because my father thought it'd be very funny if there was a puppet named Ted after Teddy Kennedy. Let's not get into that right now. My dad was obviously not a Democrat. So he thought that was very funny. And then Teddy was my alter ego, my muse. And that's when I started. The first joke I ever wrote was in the back of the school bus when the bullies picked on me for the first time. The first joke was, I say to the puppet, you are so obnoxious. And the puppet says, I can't believe I'm your kid. I say to the puppet, if you were my kid, I'd give you poison. And the puppet says, if I were your kid, I'd take it. Yeah. Okay, that's my 12-year-old joke writing skill. All right. The point of that is I've already realized what I have to do. I have to have content. I can't just go out and make the puppet say all the letters. Nobody's going to care. There has to be a reason for the puppet pronouncing the letter B perfectly without me moving my lips. content is everything. And just to get into ventriloquism a little more, to bring the puppet, as you were talking about, to life, to bring your inanimate objects to life, they have to have a personality, which is why I do a lot of stand-up comedy in my act, which establishes me as someone who went to college, went to grad school, played sports, and can talk. And then I have, in addition to that, I have all these imaginary friends who are basically part of my life. And they are, I had a children's TV show called Taylor's Attic, which had all my puppets in it, probably 9 puppets in the show, which was literally based a middle-aged man in the attic with his puppets, which is maybe why the show only lasted 2 years. So, but all of them had their own personality. And Brad, how do you bring the puppet's personality to life in a theater, on television, in a movie, whatever? It's just the same as a sitcom. The puppet looks at you. This goes back to when I practiced the sock. You put 2 pieces of black felt on the sock, and those are the eyes. And to bring it to life, and you're standing in front of a mirror on the 2nd floor practicing by yourself how to make the puppet say the letter P without moving your lips. You look into the puppet's eyes the same way as if you're working with an actor or an actress in a really big scene in a movie. Yes, you have to have an incredible imagination. You probably have to have been picked on a few times, maybe sobbed your brains out alone in a room a few thousand times. And now your fantasy world has come true. You are doing your own movie. You are the director. You're the writer. You're the actor. You're the star. Nobody can take that away from you. I'm with my puppet. I look her right in the eyes. How are you? I'm doing great. How are you? Oh my gosh, I'm brilliant. Okay, and that is the crux of it, is right there. Your imagination has to just go. You have to ignore the stand-up comics who their thing is literal. Mine is not. Mine is imagination.
Yeah.
Mine is fun. Mine is we're in this together. Mine is don't give up.
No, but here's the other thing. Like I said, and I had to take this journey on my own. I have no obligation to be nice to ventriloquists. I'm just a guy trying to live my life. But I was trying, but I couldn't ignore the success. And I keep bringing up Dunham because
well, that's what, Jeff, real quick. Without Jeff Dunham, I owe a great. Okay, so in the holy trinity of ventriloquists would be Jeff Dunham, no doubt, who changed the rotation of the earth and is a great ventriloquist. I don't care what anybody says. And I know people have all kinds of opinions. As far as I'm concerned, he's great. He is not my biggest fan, but I'm not being altruistic. I'm just being a person with great faith in my faith. And I'm telling you, this guy is really good. He's funny, fun, interesting, creative, etc.
Well, and didn't he, and I could be wrong, so I'll just enlighten us. I
Right.
got to say, the other thing that I found that I think helped him stand out is his puppets were much more detailed and just seemed to have a lot more sophistication and very specifically almost he was trying to do something that I didn't often see. And again, I could be wrong because you would know the backstory of ventriloquism, but even Charlie McCarthy felt like a doll, right? But he was making characters that did seem almost three-dimensional and real, even though I think part of what makes ventriloquism work is in a way you've made a living cartoon, and people like cartoons, so you've also kind of created that too. And most puppets are cute and kind of simple, just a higher grade of sock puppet. He kind of made that old man guy, and he made
Right.
and they made him very almost like a miniature, legit, real human, even though you still know he's. And so, am I wrong in saying he kind
No, I
of
would say
pioneered
right.
that too?
I'll take it to another. I think so. The classic. We've all see. Everybody's a really good purveyor and critic of comedy. Why is that? Because we grew up on the Dick Van Dyke Show, Car 54. Go ahead, name. I don't care. Name all of them. Go through until the Roseannes and the Friends and the Seinfelds. So what Jeff has done, and I think what Terry Fader and Darcy Lynn Farmer and really good ventriloquists do, is similar to a sitcom. You have definitive characters. The old man, the character from another planet or whatever, the black guy, whatever it is. So these are definitive characters in his theatrical performance, just like a play. It's just like a sitcom. It's just like a movie. It's a comedy. and it is written in such a manner that it's accessible because the jokes are there one every 15 seconds. It is just as prolific and as talented as the best stand-up comics, which is why he sells out arenas much more so than most 99% of the comedians, all of whom are very jealous of Jeff. Well, too bad. Sorry, he's doing a better job than you are. It just
Well,
doesn't.
and the thing is, and again, I'm just kind of giving credit where credit's due. The other thing about ventriloquism is that you was what you just said. He's created an ensemble. In other
Right.
words, a comic hasn't come to perform for you. I've got 12 people that came to perform for you tonight. It's like so I'm getting more bang for my buck because I get to bring in all these fun guys to come in with you. And so again, but I'm just telling you face to face, through a camera that I'm a stand-up comic. I was a magician. I saw different types of acts, so I appreciate them. And I just kind of dismiss ventriloquism as somehow lower grade. I had to take time to get outside of my own ego and my own pride and say, man, I had to do it the hard way. You got this, little
Ah,
prop guy. I had to get outside of it and say, look, the proof is in the pudding. Do people buy tickets? Do they laugh? Are they entertained? Did they leave that place saying that was worth everything? Then how are you going to say that's less important than a stand-up comedy? What difference does it make? If you were either entertained or you weren't. And I think that I I mean again, I'm speaking as a comedy magician and then a straight monologist. I know for a fact that the it comes from two places. Jealousy if they're doing better than you, and two, it because stand-up monology, and you've done it without any props, is hard, really hard. It just feels like I had to suffer to not have this crutch, this prop, and to me, even music parodies, the song guys, um, I feel like, well, you still needed a famous song first, be so that you could just make funny words. And it's like, well, I could have done that. Why don't you do me a favor and write the original song? This is why I never liked impressionists, because I was like, I can't do impressions. You guys are great, but if it wasn't for famous people,
how could you have a job?
you wouldn't have a job. So all you're doing is paint by numbers. It's like I can't make the Mona Lisa, but I can sure paint it exactly like he did. So it feels like cheating. That's the easiest way to summarize it. And what I'm trying to tell you in real time is it isn't. It's a different skill set that is equally difficult. And like I said, this Nina Connie is the one that really.
I think that's so interesting. And I mean, you can find her online so easy. If you haven't seen her, you probably have. But on social media, just put in the name Nina, Nina Conti, Conti. You put her name in there, and she, as Brad said, just has a lot of stuff. A couple things. First, I find a whole bunch of things not. I don't believe in irony or coincidence except as theatrical devices, because that is my career. My career is comedy, music, ventriloquism. There's my career, and I'm an old man. I'm 69 years old. I've been doing this for way longer than most people. I would say that first of all, magic also has become a la ventriloquism. Magic has become very popular in the last decade or so. The magicians are doing very well, and there are a lot of great magicians. And I would relate ventriloquism and magic just for this reason, Brad, because you were a magician. And I think that is helpful for you in ways that other stand-up comics don't have that perspective, because you have a complete and very broad reference base of what manipulation and I guess I'm trying to say, you can see where things are going before they actually happen. You know where the coin is going to come out of the ear, and this you have to practice so many times showing your empty palm, and the coin is actually in here.
But Taylor, I think that this is probably the best comparison in how ventriloquism and magic maybe has some correlation.
Yes.
Is that you don't um if you're great at your craft, whatever it is, the one criteria that establishes why people love you is because it looks easy.
Yes.
That's what you spend years of blood, sweat, and tears and crying and difficulty. And am I good enough? And am I funny? And can I pull this off? And can I compete? And is anybody going to like me? Because most performance artists have dealt with such pain, have dealt with such difficulty in their life, have such low self-esteem, and they're desperate to be dignified, and they're desperate to find others to say you're worth something and you're valuable. Maybe you didn't get it from your family of origin, and it sounded like you had wonderful parents, and that's
Oh
not
yeah.
your issue.
My
But
support
nevertheless,
great.
you,
Yes.
you still had your bullying from your peers, which are the most important things in your life when you're young, is your peers. And they don't give you value and they don't give you credit. And it's so hard and it's so difficult. And if you are a person of faith, at least you have a place to go to try to find some overcoming and some healing. But it doesn't make it easier and it doesn't make it less painful. And the difference is, if you're great at your craft, people will say to you, well, that's easy. All you did was take a puppet and give him some lines. And it's like, okay. And you know what? Who's somebody who taught me something? There's a guy, his name is Michael Finney. He's this comedy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
I love that guy.
so I was talking to Michael about him doing, because he's a comedy magician. And so
Really.
so I was talking to him about, and he said he was saying the same thing, Taylor. He was saying, "Oh, I will go do comedy clubs," and they're like, "Oh, you're a comedy magician. You're just, you use props." And he said to them this, and I'll never forget. It was brilliant. He took up some rope and he goes, "Oh, really? Here's a piece of rope. Make me laugh." And I was like,
Good
"Oh,
for him.
oh, yay! You're right. Yeah, I can learn to pretend to cut a rope and make it come back. I can teach that to you in 3 minutes. Make me laugh, because that's the hard part.
It's the pattern,
Entertain me with it. That's
right?
the hard part. Oh, and by the way, when it feels like it was so easy and so basic and so simple that anybody can do it, it means I'm a master at this, and it's something you will never get to, because it took me 20 years to make that seems like it took me 2 minutes.
Right.
That's the difference. Well, I don't want to lose this. We're getting to the end, but maybe we can talk again someday, because this is wonderful. I just love the insights about this craft that very few people would understand. But there's two more questions I do want to ask you just to add to it. The first one is more back to a technical element, but I don't want to lose this. If it's even selfishly for my own sake, because I appreciate techniques of artists, is what I alluded to before, but I don't want to lose it because we didn't really talk about it. The idea of throwing your voice there. And I'm just going to embarrass myself by looking at a ventriloquist, but I'm trying to show you something. So if I sit there and go, "Hi, Taylor, look, I can talk, and look, nothing's moving." Yeah, I can't do the M. Nothing's moving. Okay, I can do that.
Right.
Okay, but all I did was use my normal voice and just close my jaw. That's all I did.
Right.
That's not deceptive. You know it's me just not moving my voice. The other technique that I don't know how you learn it, because you just did it when you did the door thing, was you hold that voice somewhere else that sounds like it's further away, or it's under a blanket, or what. That thing, what is that? What? Because it won't work
It's
unless
just
it sounds like it's somewhere else.
it's the exact same thing as you were just talking about with the rope. It's the exact same thing. Taylor, what? Are you done? No, I'm not done. What? What? What are you going to be done? We're going to be done here. He said maybe 5 minutes. Are you okay with that? No. Honey, give me 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. It's the same thing. And how did I set it up? I set that up by, and of course you can't see this, but you can hear. What? Never mind. You can hear, and in my mind, I'm doing it. I can see this person. Oh, you. I can see this person in my mind. She's standing right over there. She looks kind of like my wife. Kind of. Well, not really. You're a little smaller. Okay, but in my mind, I'm already playing out the whole thing. Really? I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to Brad. What are you doing? I'm talking to Brad. We're talking about ventriloquism.
But that's it. But that right there, what you're doing right there, whatever that technique is, because I'm realizing again, and I don't even know why I'm going all over because I'm more fascinated by ventriloquist because I'm starting to see how many layers there are to make this work.
There are three because I can't move my lips, so that would give it away. Of course, on the podcast you can't see, but I don't care because I'm doing what? I'm doing ventriloquism. Just leave me alone. Go away. So I'm doing ventriloquism. I'm not moving my lips, but I'm doing two other things that you're talking about. I'm creating a character that I can see in my mind. She looks a little bit like my wife, so she's Latin, okay, but she's dressed kind of frumpy, and she, for whatever reason, she thinks I'm interrupting her, even though we're talking. So yeah. I'm creating this scene, and then maybe the biggest thing is I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, but there's a timing. Timing technique because you have to interrupt. What is that?
Yes, wait a minute.
I mean, you basically have to act with yourself. It's almost like you have to motivate. You have to look. The other thing they'll do is they'll be talking, and then they'll look at the audience, going, "Can you believe this guy?" And meanwhile, so my face has to be doing this. It's kind of like trying to play bass and sing lead at the same time, like Geddy Lee. It's really hard.
Yes.
And so I have to go like look over here at the audience, going, "Can you get that? Yeah. Shut up! Can you?" So you have to make your face act like it's disconnected from your voice, which is over here doing something else completely distinct from what your face is doing to give the illusion that I have nothing to do with this guy. That's a lot of work, man. That's a lot of
10,000 hours. 10,000 hours. Man. You can't, you cannot put
okay, but I got to ask before we go, because we still haven't got there, and I got to know now. I don't know how else to frame it. Where do you hide your voice? Because it's not just going, hi, saying the normal voice, it's sounding suppressed, or so it's got to be somewhere else in your vocal dynamics. Is it up in your nasal passages? Is it down in your throat? Where is it?
You can put it, I always say swallow it down into your diaphragm. So it's way down here. It's way down there. Where is it? It's way down. Hello. Okay, I'm going to do it in my nose. I'm in my nose now, so I'm in my nasal cavities.
You do have to physically locate this sound that comes from your diaphragm. That's our normal way that humans speak. And you do have to find two cavities in your biological body to localize this sound. That it sounds like it's further away. So when I look over here or over there or over through the door, my mind, because our ears are probably the least equipped of all of our senses to locate things. If I'm going over here and looking that way and you hear what sounds like it normally sounds, my mind says, they're back there, even though they're not, because you have mimicked what it would sound like if somebody was really there. Okay, that was a long, convoluted way.
No, but I get, okay, so here's what I'm going to say, because I know young people are going to hear this and say, I'm going to try this. And this is the first thing I'm going to say is, if it hurts, stop. It's not worth having a sore throat just so that you can be a ventriloquist, because you're probably doing something wrong if it hurts. And not always. But the second thing is, if I were to go back in time, Brad, and study this even more and become more proficient, I would probably go to a vocal coach, a professional, a person who would teach, not a Beyonce or a Mariah Carey, but say a person who would have taught the lead singer of a 70s band, REO Speedwagon, Journey, one of those bands. They probably went to a vocal coach of some sort. I don't know, but I'm just saying they probably want to be really good at what they do. They really want to hit all the notes and hold the note and all that. I would do that, because you're doing the same thing as a ventriloquist, basically, is you are using sound to create emotion or create a character or create a personality. All right. So that's one difference I would make. Another thing about just using sound is, okay, so I've had this wild career, bud. I was the opening act for Tina Turner, Crystal Gale, Jerry Lee Lewis, Warren Zevon, a bunch of people as a ventriloquist. Not an easy gig. But what's easy about it is you're in these big arenas. I toured with Bill Gaither and the Homecoming Artists playing 20,000. I've played 20,000 seat arenas, and Jeff Dunham does as well. And I'm not comparing myself to him. He's great. He's the best there is. I'm not questioning it. I'm just saying I have played many, 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 many basketball and hockey arenas, which for a ventriloquist is awesome because the acoustics are insane. It doesn't take a long time for you to figure out, oh my gosh, every puppet's gonna come out of the bag and it's gonna be screaming, get me out of here. When I finish my show, they're going back in the bag and they're all gonna be saying, let me out, because the acoustics are so good.
Yeah.
It's 20,000 people. There's the Diamond Vision screen. They're not going to know what's going on in the 44th level. They don't. I'm going to have and it works. A lot of that is because I've practiced. I know what I'm doing. I know how to use my voice. I can do all kinds of stuff with my voice. If I have to, I can do. I'm trying to think my favorite impression. Hello, everybody. Harry Carey. The Cubs. Oh, there's a home run. The Cubs are a great, because as a ventriloquist, I'm not saying I'm a great impressionist. As a ventriloquist, you just naturally, and I got to tell you. So I'm at the Molson Arena in Toronto, and my brother was in Toronto. I thought I would do my act.
Yeah.
I'm in Toronto, 20,000 seater, packed. And I thought I would do this, or I would do a parody that you're talking about at the piano of Gordon Lightfoot, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, right? The legend lives on from the chip on down. Easy impression to do. I'm going to kill. So I go up, I get the crowd laughing, and now I'm going to close my show with my impression of Gordon Lightfoot. I go over to the piano and I say, I'm an American and from the United States, and a lot of us were first introduced to Canada through the golden tones of Gordon Lightfoot, thinking I would now make fun of him. The place goes up for grabs. He's gonna. I realize, oh my gosh, I can't do it now. And then I hear one voice, like in the upper deck, let me see you get out of this. It was my brother. And he yells, let me see you get out of this. And so I had to play just a piano version of Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, because I had planned, but then it's kind of what you were talking about a while ago, improvisation. You have to know how far you can push it.
Yeah.
You have to know if there's something about, and I think as a magician, you can see what's going to happen. And believe me, I saw as I started playing, when they all went crazy, I realized, oh my gosh, I can't insult him now.
Yeah, right.
I have put myself in this corner. I'm going to play a quick instrumental, and then I'm out of here.
Well, but again, that only comes from years of experience and going with the flow, because ultimately you're hired to entertain people, and that's really all that matters.
And that's really what Jeff does. Dunham is a great improviser. That's another, his puppets or his imaginary friends, whatever you want to call them, are great at improvising. He does a lot of stuff off the cuff, as we would call it. Some of it's rehearsed, but a lot of it is him just coming up with stuff. And I think there's something that Nina Conti has taken it to a whole nother level. Good for her. She grew up in that kind of environment where comedy.
By the way, I should say this, by the way, because a lot of people that listen to this are Christians, or they might even be listening in the car with their kids. Just to let you know, Nina isn't clean, so she will use some language.
Thank you. Yes,
she'll use some sexual references.
She has a puppet who's a monkey named Monkey. Yeah, and Monkey is not family friendly.
Not at all. And you know what? And this is the sad reality is. Monkey is hysterical. I mean, it's a great routine. I love how she just called him Monkey. It just made him this sort of basic thing, but it's very dirty. And I wish it wasn't, because I can still, as a comic, appreciate the delivery, the timing, the funny, the danger. She pushes them. I love that as comedy, when comedy just really pushes it. But again, it's not a family friendly in the least.
Good point, Brad.
I want people to know that, so you don't say, "Why did you recommend this?" So let me just kind of summarize this, if we could, because there's so many beautiful things, and it really is, Taylor. I appreciate you kind of being, vulnerable and sort of showing and sharing some of the challenges. And I'm very honest when I say I'm really mind boggled not
Yeah.
just from your own experiences in the clubs, as a ventriloquist, but I never even thought in my wildest dreams that it was like you're being shunned or treated so poorly by fellow performers. I wouldn't have even that would have never even crossed my mind, right? So it's an odd scenario, but I can relate and understand it because I'm a professional comic. I grew up in that environment. I do know how, and I was one of them, how we perceived variety acts and the different styles. So I get it, but you don't think that you're hurting somebody.
Yeah, and like I said, and believe me, I do not hold grudges.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, and there's a lot. I mean, I've learned all the things to say. You go to do a TV special or a streaming comedy special, and there's other comics. Um, oh, you're a ventriloquist. Oh yeah, I know you're the ventriloquist, and I always say, yeah, it's my crutch. I love it. I need it. I have to have my crutch. Don't take it away from me. I'll play along with the game. I don't care. It just adds another pebble to that giant rock of Gibraltar on my shoulder.
No,
There it
but listen, you know what? I mean, I'm 5'6". I'm short.
is.
So,
There you go.
well, but that matters because
Yeah,
the truth is the idea of Napoleon complex is real in that I think what happens in life in general is we all experience trauma. We all experience pain. We all experience bullying, perhaps. Maybe some folks never did, but most of us have, or at least being on the outs, or not being the popular, or being betrayed. I mean, we've all experienced the
you've been
pain
hurt.
of the human experience, right? But here's the difference. Nobody gets out without the pain. Nobody gets out without the trauma. Okay, but how do you respond to it? That's the
Man,
difference. And some people do it because they take drugs so they can hide from it. Some get drunk because that way they can make it disappear. Some lash out. Some become even more evil because that makes them feel stronger when they find somebody that they can bully and say, "Well, I'll find my own victims." But some of us say, "Oh yeah, you're right. I'm I'm short. I get it. There's no reason you should pick me for the team. Wait till you get a load of me."
okay,
And you use it as a motivating force to say, not only am I going to be better than you, you're not going to be able to keep up. In other words, we turn it into an impetus to drive us instead of destroy us.
and
And,
here's and
not everybody can do that.
and this is one thing I learned from sports too. One is okay. So I got my big bunda, my butt kicked a lot. I got humiliated in big 70,000 seat stadiums. That when you have that happen to you, it's not pleasant. But here's what I learned. Just piggyback on what you said. And I would say this under my breath, my little prayer every play. I didn't pray before the game. I prayed every play that I was in, which was not a lot. I lettered. Let's say that I earned enough playing time that I lettered a couple of years. This is how I approached everything, Brad. I am never going to be the best player on this field. I'm never going to be great. Here's what I am going to be. I'm going to be the best player I can possibly be on this one play, 3rd and 8 on my own 24. I'm going to be the best nose tackle in the history of the Big Ten just for this one play. And then that didn't work. Back to the huddle, come to the line of scrimmage, and here come these these Easter Island human beings. I'm going to be the best middle guard for this one play, 1st and 10 on our own 12. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to do the best. And that mentality comes from what we've been talking about, breaking down ventriloquism, using your voice, substituting the sounds, overcoming the bullies, finding a way to make it work. I'm going to be the best act on this stage. I may not be the best ventriloquist. I may not be the best comedian, but I'm going to be the best you ever saw for this next 1 hour at the Moonlight Theater in St. Charles, Illinois, that anybody's ever seen. I can't wait for the program to start.
Well, but what you discovered with that, and that's a brilliant, beautiful difficult but important way to navigate life.
Oh, that's right.
And you did it. You did it with detriments that you said, well, I can't make myself suddenly the best player, whether I like it or not, but I can go in with a mindset that decides to behave as such. And what is most important, I think what I can dig out of what you just said, that most of us instinctively as humans simply don't do, and you really have to discipline yourself. And as a Christ follower, um, I always say to people, you weren't called to be a Christian. You were called to be a disciple. That's what God
Mhm.
said. And disciple was where you get discipline, and discipline is hard because you're going to fail regularly. But what is most important about what you just said, and boy, is this deep and not instinctual. People have to decide to live this, not talk about it like it's a bumper sticker. Because when you really do the hard things, it's hard. You didn't define yourself by the result.
Yeah.
You defined yourself by the intention. Now that is sounds like a great bumper sticker or a great little Tony Robbins, uh,
I
quick
hear ya.
click to make you feel good about yourself. But when you put it into actual action, because you're actually being knocked semi-conscious from a football tackle, or you're actually being mocked and ridiculed because you happen to want to be a ventriloquist, or because and in the meantime you said, okay, I can't stop this, but I can stop the way I'm going to respond to it. That I can control. And you said, all right, well, you can mock and ridicule me. Number one, you ain't paying my check. So it doesn't really matter what you think. Number
Amen.
two, if the people laughed, I did my job. And number three, I like me. I like what I came up with. I like my little characters I
Thank you,
created. I
Jesus. Yeah.
like the things. I like them, and people like them too. And in my little world that I've found, I've done fine. I've done fine. And again, what an easy thing to say, but wow, hard to do. But if people would make that commitment, God Almighty, if you're a Christ follower, you said I'm enough because you saved me. You said I'm enough because you made me in your image. You said I'm enough because you see me through the blood of Christ. You said I'm enough because you have a plan for my life, and it may never be great. I might just be living this and working this factory in this little town the rest of my life, but I can have influence on the people around me. I can be kind to them. I can be Christness to them. I can love them. I can be a friend to them. I can find the kid that's bullied and go ahead and say, "Look, I'll be your friend." I can make a difference to one guy, two guys, 10 people. Don't matter. And that's all I'm responsible for. That's all I'm responsible for.
Amen.
Is
God works through people. No doubt
That's
about
it. So I'm going to have you answer a question to my subscribers. This is a special question I ask to my people that I have on, that only subscribers to the mighty 10,000. It's just $3 a month to help my ministry do this thing, including this podcast. But only they get to see these special answers. So I'm going to go back to that, in that you have made it clear without saying the words that, unless I'm misunderstood, that it appears that Jeff Dunham, in the history of ventriloquism, is the king. He's the guy that did more, maybe than Edgar Bergen, because he's kind of been forgotten, I guess, over this many years later. Uh, but he does appear to have certainly done more than any ventriloquist. If success means how much you made, how iconic your characters were, how many people show up to see you, how longevity of your career. I don't know there's anybody in ventriloquism that has touched Jeff Dunham. So from one successful ventriloquist to commenting on other, what did he figure out that nobody else ever did when it comes to being the most successful ventriloquist in history?
Well, and the simple answer to that is I don't exactly know. I don't exactly know. What is it about Jeff Dunham that is better than, and I could name 50. Okay, so this is going to be a long answer. First, in the holy trinity of ventriloquism, for people of faith, if ventriloquism, and there are people, I wrote a book called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Ventriloquism, and there was a ventriloquist convention. I went to the convention, and it's kind of what you would picture to be. I personally enjoy ventriloquists and ventriloquism. So for me, it's a lot of fun. Maybe not everybody's cup of tea. There's a ventriloquist museum, and it's a very big business. This I learned when I wrote the book. I learned that every cruise ship has one or two favorite ventriloquists. Every comedy club has a favorite ventriloquist. All the big shows, America's Got Talent has had numerous ventriloquists. It is a burgeoning industry. I get more requests for information about how to do ventriloquism probably than anything else. Jeff is part of the Holy Trinity, which I would include Edgar Bergen from the 1930s, and then his daughter Candace, who is not a ventriloquist, but a beautiful lady and a very fine actor. Sherry Lewis, who was there were a lot of ventriloquists in the 1950s. Paul Winchell, Jimmy Nelson had a dog named Farfel, who did an iconic television commercial called Nestle's. The theme song was Nestle's makes the very best, and the puppet dog ventriloquist say Nestle's, and the mouth would clap at the end, and they kept the clap because the advertising agency did a focus group, and the people voted for the clap to stay in the commercial. So for our generation, we watched that commercial about 20,000 times. And the thing was at the end, the clap of the dog mouth, puppet mouth, was the end of the commercial for Nestle's. So you had Sherry Lewis superseded, and Paul Winchell had his own TV show back in the late 50s, early 60s. And Sherry Lewis superseded them. So Edgar Bergen in the 30s and into the 40s, Sherry Lewis in the 50s and 60s. And then along came Jeff Dunham in the 1980s. And I think there were a lot of things. One, he's a very, very, very good ventriloquist. Two, as you pointed out, Brad, he has great characters. And if you're going to boil ventriloquism down to the essential elements that make it up, it's going to be your technique, your puppets, as you talked about, and your content, your material. Those three things: puppet, technique, content. And Jeff put all those together in a modern form that wasn't old school, made you roll your eyes, or doing what I call, for lack of a better word, sitcom jokes, where, the puppet was, what you would say to the puppet, I'm going to go take a nap. I need my beauty rest. And the puppet would say, then you're going to need to sleep for 100 years.
Yeah.
That was what kind of, and that's why you were talking about the rolling your eyes in the church basement years ago, because that's what ventriloquists were doing. Jeff took his act and performance to another level, much more hip, much more interesting, much more dynamic, much more contemporary than what had been going on around him.
Yeah.
And those three, Bergen, Sherry Lewis, and Jeff Dunham, are to me the three that, and then there are Willie Tyler and Lester, African-American from Detroit, who worked for Motown for many years, for our generation, well-known, still working. He's got to be 80, still doing his thing. He's great. Ron Lucas, a lot of people who was in the Broadway show Sugar Babies, worked for years out in Las Vegas. I don't know what he's doing now, but a great ventriloquist. There are many more. Dan Horn. I could name tons and tons. Lynn Tresker, a guy named Mark Merchant. There are many. And like I said, every cruise ship, every comedy club, every casino has a favorite ventriloquist that they use. And it's a big industry now. But I would agree with you that Jeff is probably the epitome of what ventriloquism is. And the reasons are great content, really interesting characters, and flawless technique.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, you can't deny the results.
Right.
He bears
And
fruit.
some people, comedy club people will say, yeah, Jeff Dunham's a big star. I've heard this a lot. Jeff Dunham's a big star, but why? Well, and then I'll go through the same thing that I just went through with you. This is why I think, you either like ventriloquists or you don't.
No, but like I said, the more I've dissected this, the more I realize that you are getting a comedy troupe. That's the kind of an advantage, really, is that people say, "Oh, I want to talk to that funny grumpy guy. Oh, let's talk to that funny space guy." They all have their own voice, their own point of view. So it's like going to a comedy club. I got an opener, a middle, and a headliner. Well, that's what the characters are. This guy's funny. Now here comes the next funny guy. Well, here's the next funny guy. And in a way, the ventriloquist is just the straight man that
Yeah.
lets the other guys become the funny guys, and yet you're doing all the work. And so that's where the creativity comes. Like I said, the more I've watched, the more I respect the technique and how challenging and good it has to be, how quick on your feet, how good the writing has to be. And I'm just, I hope as a Christian, I'm growing and being more introspective and in even discovering my own ego in how it wants to disdain those who you feel like or decide haven't had the same difficulties or challenges or journeys and they're cheating. And it's not true. We don't know what other guys have gone through and what their lives have been like and what they're, so I really am fascinated by my, I believe, perspective that I'll bet you that those who choose ventriloquism um, were people that were probably bullied, that were what we'd call nerds, maybe. Because magicians, by the way, a lot of times choose that too. They were nerds, and it gives them a sense of power. I'm doing magic. So I'm giving myself power that you don't have. And of course, it's an illusion. Well, a ventriloquist says, I'm bringing people to life,
Amen.
creating life that you can. So there's this mystical element to it that we're not thinking. It's all subconscious, but it's taking control of your own life and taking over things that you don't have control over in your real life. Taylor, I'm going to have you end
Sure.
with this. Um, People that watch my show live on YouTube and X and so forth on Monday nights on Brad Stein Has Issues, or watch it later after it's aired. This goes around the world, and I bring on everybody to my show. They don't have to be Christ followers, but I make it very clear. I believe Jesus Christ uh, is the most famous human being that has ever existed on
No
earth.
doubt.
And he's the most influential human being that has ever existed. And I think that's a good, um, that should be a good criteria if you're going to choose who's God and who is the religion of truth, would be him and his book, the Bible, which is the most the big bestseller of all time and the most unique book in human history. So there's lots of reasons to believe in Christ as Jewish Messiah, who then said, now everybody gets to be part of this. It's not just Jews. So it's a unique religion that is one of a kind, and it's the most successful in history. Doesn't make it true, but it certainly gives you a lot of reasons to think so. But I guarantee you, with you kind of talking about your story and some of the pains you've gone through and how you've succeeded in the midst of it, and you have this wonderful countenance and kindness to you, and you've overcome that, that there's probably a lot of people that are going to be moved by that, and maybe they're suffering bullying, maybe they're suffering pain, maybe they feel isolated, especially younger kids who don't know where to go.
Oh yeah.
And I want you to, you talked about how your faith was the only way that it sustained you at times. I want you to go ahead and look in this camera as you are doing. You have nowhere else to look. But I want you just to tell them for you, and however God would tell you, um, you, there is a way out, and there is a place that you can go that will give you what you're looking for and that can help you through these things. There is a God and he loves you. To say however you would like to leave somebody who says, give me some answers because I don't know where to go. Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstein.com and join one of the three tiers. It is the militia of the mind, it is the warrior level, or it is the special forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the Mighty 10,000. I want you guys to know that this is Taylor Mason. Go to his website. I'm sure he's got a tour page. If you ever want to see him live, I'm sure he's got lots of work on YouTube. You can see what he's up to and why he's doing what he does and why he's been so successful. I think he does Disney cruises. So if you all are ever taking a Disney cruise, you might end up seeing him there. And
Amen.
I'm sure he'd be happy for you to come up and say hi to him and say, even if, hey, I saw you on the Brad Stein's podcast. It was great meeting you. You really changed my life. So that's what happens. We don't know why or how God uses this, but he does. And it's always humbling when we find out that he uses us because, trust me, we know how broken we are. But
Oh yeah, no doubt.
God's got nothing else to work with, so he's stuck with us. Folks, remember, if they ever say you're politically incorrect, always say thank you for the compliment because nothing is more important in the earth right now than being a truth teller. And if you're Christian, you're the last truth teller on earth. Speak unapologetically about your faith and bring people to the place that God is waiting for all of us when we enter into the eternal rest. Folks,
Amen.
just a comic. Taylor, he's just a ventriloquist, but we've done a lot of good and we've done a lot of bad. And God has used us the best he could, and that's what he's using you for. Thank you for coming to Brad Stein Has
Thanks,
Issues podcast. And remember, I'm doing what I have to do, just putting the woke back to sleep. See you next week.